All right, it is the day. Today is the day. The reviews of the RTX 5090 we have long awaited have finally been released. So now we can talk openly about the 5090 and everything about it. So this stream is going to be in-depth. It's going to be an in-depth look at the review data that I've compiled after watching and reading a whole bunch of reviews online. My impression of the 5090, although I have yet to actually test one myself, but I'll be giving my opinion on it based off of all the data that I've kind of sifted through throughout today. So this is going to be an in-depth analysis of the 5090, although unless I have the card in hand, I won't be able to give like a 100% opinion, final opinion. But so far, from what we've seen, obviously, you know, it's the fastest gaming GPU, although I question the statement of whether or not it is considered a gaming GPU. I really think that NVIDIA should have called this something else. I don't think the 5090 is a good name for this product, because I think it's actually, because it has the GeForce branding, I think a lot of people are going to spend way too much money on this just for gaming, and depending on their existing setup, they're either going to be underwhelmed or disappointed and feel like they spent a whole lot of money and they didn't really get the best experience. So we're going to get into why I think that is as we go through the reviews. So good evening, everybody. If you're new to this channel and you like these open discussions, this is the Tech Thursdays live stream. I do these live stream shows live with the viewers every Thursdays with very few exceptions. So if you want to take part in the discussion, feel free to start chatting away. The chat, we have a pretty good community that we built up over the last year or two now. And we're just going to keep on growing from here. So that being said, the 5090 Founders Edition reviews are out. Tomorrow, we will be looking at the reviews for the 5090 AIB, stands for add-in board, or AIC add-in card. So basically the cards that are made from the board partners of NVIDIA. So the partner cards, so Asus, MSI, Gigabyte, Zotac, PNY, some other ones that are not really well known in North America, like Gainward, Galax. All those GPUs will be available in terms of review data tomorrow. So you have to wait one more day if you were interested in getting one of the AIB cards. So today we're going to strictly focus on the Founders Edition card because that is the one that we now have absolute data on. So we can actually talk about it and analyze the results. So let's kind of get right into it here. My go-to review for this is going to be none other than Tech PowerUp, because Tech PowerUp tests a lot of games, and they also have some of the best data when it comes to the noise levels, the sound pressure, like how audible the GPU will be, because they actually show you the RPM data under load. So we're going to look at that. Now, the first thing I will say, the one thing that kind of caught me off guard with the review data is the amount of power that the 5090 pulls while gaming. The first thing that is probably the biggest disappointment is the fact that this GPU pulls power under load close to its TDP. This is the complete opposite of what we saw with the 4090. The 4090 was rated for 450 watts, but it rarely ever ran close to 450 watts. In reality, the 4090 was more like 350 watts, maybe 375 at most. So as someone who actually has a 4090 Founders Edition, I can tell you my 4090 Founders Edition barely ever pulled more than like 375. I think the most I ever saw it do was maybe 425 watts, and that was really trying to push like RT and everything maxed out. But typically the 4090 was very, very energy efficient. So the new Blackwell architecture is basically, NVIDIA had to make do with the best they could because they did not have a node shrink. Basically, and that's why a lot of reviews out there are calling this the 4090 Ti, because it's really not that different from the 4090, or in this case, Blackwell is not that different from Ada, except it is basically more electricity, more power for more speed, for more performance. That's basically what it is. I keep reading the same comments. 30% more for 30%. It's like you're paying like almost 30% more money for 30% more performance, for 30% more power consumption, etc. So I hear the 30, 30, 30. I keep hearing 30%. So, and that is the general theme from a lot of these reviews. So the one thing is the power consumption is going to be a big problem for a lot of people that are going to try to buy this card, and they have no experience with a high wattage GPU, like a real high wattage GPU. The last GPU that pulled power close to this GPU was the 3090 Ti. The 3090 Ti is the only GPU in recent history that gets close to the 5090. No other GPU pulls power like the 5090 and the 3090 Ti. So we've been saying this for about a year now, that the 50 series was going to be like a copy paste repeat of the 30 series, and that is becoming more and more true because 30 series used a lot of power. Look at the 3090, look at the 3090 Ti, and here we are with 50 series today with the 5090, and yeah, this thing pulls some eyebrow-raising amounts of power. It is a little bit concerning for a lot of reasons. Let's go straight to the power consumption. I'm just gonna dive right in. Power consumption.
30% thick per bill dollar catching.
Yeah, it is a 30% thick. Well, oh yeah, the power bill too. Yeah, that's the other 30%. 30% power electricity bill. Yes. Yes, thanks for pointing that out. But you can see, this is what is ridiculous. This is probably the most disappointing thing about this graphics card, to be honest. The biggest disappointment is the fact that while gaming, this graphics card is pulling its TDP. Like, when was the last time an NVIDIA graphics card actually pulled its TDP? I feel like the last time it was 30 series. 30 series. This is gonna be insane. Look at the power. Furmark is exceeding 600 watts. Gaming is right up there next to Furmark. When I saw this, I was like, oh man, the people who have no idea how to deal with high wattage GPUs are going to buy this thing. They're going to cause a meltdown. They're going to burn out their power supply. They're going to trip OCP because they're going to stick this thing with an adapter that NVIDIA gives you in the box, and they're going to like fire up Cyberpunk, and they're going to start playing, and like 3 minutes into the game, the entire computer shuts off, and they're like So, I mean, there's going to be a lot of that stuff going on. I can see it right now. There's going to be a bunch of people complaining, my computer's shutting off. My computer's shutting off while gaming. I don't know what's wrong. Is my 5090 defective? What's going on? Help. There's going to be a lot of that. But, you know, that's for the people who don't know what they're talking about. Like, people who don't know anything about computers probably should not buy a 5090. Seriously. People don't understand. This is not a good thing. This is not a good thing. This power consumption number is not good. We haven't even gotten into the fact that it's using that, like, controversial 12 plus 4 power connector, like, you know, the infamous power connector, the meltdown connector. So, okay, idle power consumption, 30 watts. Okay, where's 4090-22? Okay, so it uses more power than the previous generation while doing absolutely nothing. Multi-monitor. Okay, whatever. It's like barely more. Video playback. 54 watts. Where's 4090? 4090 in video playback, 26 watts. So the problem is, I have a feeling that because this graphics card has so many shaders, it's just gonna run more electricity just to operate, just to function. It's going to draw more electricity. Okay, so gaming. This is the thing that's the most concerning thing. This is the gaming power consumption. Gaming power consumption. 587 watts. That is wild. This is wild. 587 watts? Dude, I thought this was going to be like 350 watts max. 370 watts max. Look at this. 4090, 411 watts. 4090 was a 450 watt TDP graphics card. And it rarely, if ever, touched that TDP number. It was always less than that number. Look at this. 5090, the TDP, 575 watts. This one goes beyond its TDP. Like, this is why I'm saying this is a return to the 3090 Ti. The 3090 Ti was a 450 watt TDP card, which always drew at its limit or above its limit. So this is back to like 30 series, guys. Like I'm telling you, this is the return of 30 series. You guessed it. Yeah. Is it time to bring out 30 series again? Hold up. 30 series. 30 series. Oh, but you know what? Here's another problem with this GPU. Unlike the 30 series, which had very nice packaging, in fact, the 30 series probably had NVIDIA's nicest box. This Founders Edition 30 series graphics card has the nicest packaging. Meanwhile, you pay $2,000. You know what you get for $2,000 for the packaging? You know what it comes in? Let's take a look at this. It comes in this. This is the box. This looks like a dog treat. It looks like a dog bone. Like, what is this? What is this? It comes in this. First of all, you gotta destroy the outer box because they make you rip it up.
I was stoked to get it at scalp price on day one, but now I will just buy it when it hits AIB MSRPs. Guess my 4090 is not too shabby compared to 5090.
Yeah, so I was very underwhelmed because of the power consumption. And really the only thing that is underwhelming about this card is the power consumption. So we haven't even gotten to the AIBs, but the AIB cards, if the rumors hold true, the AIB pricing it's not going to be as bad as scalper pricing, but it's a lot more expensive than the MSRP of the FE card. So, but yeah, I appreciate the comment. So the thing about the one more thing I'll add to that is this Founders Edition card. I feel like a lot of the marketing around this specific card from nvidia, the Founders Edition card, has been focused on the cooler, like how they oh, you know, they made it a 2-slot design. They made it a 2-slot design. They engineered, it's an engineering masterpiece. It's an amazing wonder of engineering. It's a 2-slot design, you know? Like it's a 2-slot. Oh, they made the connector go vertical again so that people don't melt their connector. You know, like, oh, it's a 2-slot design. It's so nice. It's a 2-slot design. Basically, now I understand why they put so much emphasis on the cooler, because there's not a whole lot more to like brag about in terms of this card. The card uses so much electricity that yeah, it's pretty impressive that a 2-slot design can actually handle 600 watts, if you know what I'm saying. Because I'll tell you right now, guys, this is the infamous 3080 Ti Founders Edition. This is the loudest NVIDIA graphics card that I have ever owned. It is 2 slots. It is a 350. I think the 3080 Ti was 350. This is a 350 watt TDP graphics card in a 2-slot design, and it is so loud. It is horrible to sit next to this thing. It's terrible. It's a horrible gaming experience. The user experience with the 3080 Ti is trash. It's trash. So, yeah, this thing is taller than the 3080 Ti, but the 3080 Ti was also 350 watts, and this is like 600. So, there's gonna be some problems. So, yeah, well, I'm kind of underwhelmed, to be honest, mainly because of the electricity problem, the electricity consumption. And the other thing, too, is it's got that controversial connector, which I'm not too worried about the connector, but at the end of the day, 600 watts? Like, really? 600 watts? Now, they do have a much better, to give NVIDIA credit where they've improved, not only did they improve the cooler to actually be capable of handling this much electricity, but they do have a much better adapter that they've included in the box. But really, the packaging, like, what is this? Like, I like to keep my boxes, as you guys know, I like to keep my GPU boxes as kind of like a showpiece, you know, like I tend to use this. What am I gonna do if I have this thing? Like, this is some ugly looking, like, I don't know whose idea it was to sell a $2,000 graphics card in a piece of cardboard that looks like it sat in an attic for 15 years or something, and it's about to like fall apart. So yeah, I don't understand that. I really don't understand that. They went from really nice packaging with the 10 series to okay packaging, or maybe equivalent packaging with the 20 series. Then they had really good packaging with the 30 series. And then they had like kind of like a downgrade in packaging with the 40 series. And then now they like went all the way to rock bottom, like the worst packaging possible for the 50 series. Like, I don't know, man. They're like, okay, well, people are supposed to recycle it anyway. Okay, I guess, but you know, really weird, really strange choices. The 2 slot, the it would be okay if it just wasn't so high power consumption. Like, that's the thing. This is the most concerning thing. Like, this is the most concerning thing. The power consumption is so high that, and we've already seen all the horror stories of what can go wrong with this cable, that like, I don't know. It's like, and then also if you're using the nice adapter, the adapter is taller, like it sticks out here, but then you got to cable manage it if you want to see your RGB GeForce logo. So yeah, I don't know. I guess they can make it look pretty good. Here they're not using, this is a native cable that they're using. They're not actually using the adapter in this picture. So for the review. But yeah, this is also a GPU that I will never, like, if I ever get one of these, I will never disassemble it. I will literally never take this thing apart. Like, this thing will stay sealed with the liquid metal forever. But the main problem, going back to this, the biggest letdown is this. The fact that while gaming, it actually pulls 570 something watts, 580 something watts. Like, that is so bad. That is so, so bad. For comparison, what I'm going to do now, I want to bring up the review of the RTX 4090. Hold on, how do we... Okay. RTX 4090 review. So let's go to this one. From October 11th of 2022, so it's been over 2 years. And then we go to power consumption, and sure enough, look at the 4090. See what I was saying? I was saying earlier that when I use the 4090, my GPU is typically no more than 325 to 350 watts, even though the TDP is 450 watts. While gaming, it never goes to 450 watts. And sure enough, Tech Power Up once again proves me right. Because here, the 4090, while gaming, is only pulling 346 watts. 4090 is rated for 450 watts, but it only pulls 340. It's like 100 watts less than what they say it's supposed to do. So I was going into these reviews assuming that the 5090 was going to be no different. I thought it was going to be more efficient. Well, you know what? No, it's not more efficient. It's like way worse. Like, it's like 30% more, but okay. But now you have a literal space heater in your room. Now you can basically turn your room into planet Mercury. You know, you can sit there and cook. You'll sit there and you'll be marinating next to your GPU while your GPU is literally like cooking you alive and everything in your room, you know? Like, it's just gonna like cause everything to decay rapidly because of all the heat. And if you live in a humid environment, it's gonna be like sweaty and nasty and just straight up gross. Just gross. Gross. You know what would make this even more hilarious? I got an idea. Check it out. I just thought of something. Pair it up with one of these. Pair it up with one of these. Overclock this thing to 6 gigahertz. Let this thing pull 300 watts. Get that 14900KS. Overclock that thing to 300 watts. Let's get some 300 watts in here. Oh yes, 300 plus 6. Oh yeah, you got a 1000. You got a 1000 watt power supply. That power supply ain't good enough. That power supply ain't gonna cut it, especially if it's like 7 years old. No, Intel. You can't be here. I'm sorry, Mr. 14900KS. You got to get out of here. If there's one component that's allowed to be a space heater, it's a graphics card, not a CPU. I got news for you, Mr. 14900K. You are straight up banned because you cannot use a lot of electricity. Hello, 9950X. Hello, Mr. Energy Efficient. I was about to say green team, but, you know, NVIDIA's green team now. So, yeah. So, 9950X, 9800X3D. These are literally the only CPUs to use because the thing is a space heater. It's a literal nuclear reactor. So, you can't use an i9 because that'll make things, like, even worse. So, you have to use either an 8-core gaming CPU, aka 9800X3D, or 7800X3D, or you got to use like a workstation PC. Realistically, like if I am going to use a 5090, that's going to be paired up with the 9950X because this is a productivity CPU. And actually, now that I think about it, the 9950X3D is probably going to be the best choice overall to pair up with 5090 because that thing is going to probably use less power than the 9950X while still giving me that wonderful 32 threads. That thing can compile shaders like that. So yes, the 16 core 32 thread is probably a good choice. Threadripper plus 5090 melts the ozone. Yeah, you could pair up Threadripper, but that's going to be almost as bad as pairing it up with the... Now, granted, it's got the multi-thread chops to back it up, but Threadripper can use almost as much power as the i9. It's kind of sad that the i9 uses more power than Threadripper while gaming, but, you know, Threadripper can pull more power than an i9 if you're doing, like, full, like, a lot of, like, rendering stuff, but even then... Most of it goes to the GPU anyway these days, so, I mean, Threadripper would be okay, but it's, yeah, if you're gonna build a productivity, like a developer, like a DevNet station, like a workstation, an HEDT, you can definitely get 5090 and pair it up with Threadripper. That's totally fine. You're probably gonna have, like, a really big case anyway with really good airflow, so it'll probably be okay, although, I don't know, it's still gonna be, like, almost as bad as the i9. But hey, at least it has the multi-thread. So, 7950X, 16-core. Yeah, that'll be good. I mean, that's last gen. I mean, it's fine. But this is the thing that is the most concerning aspect of the 5090, is the power consumption. Because a lot of people don't understand like what this means, like what's it actually like to game with a computer that is pumping out, like with a GPU that's pumping out almost 600 watts of power, like constantly while playing the game. So that's very concerning. Okay, ray tracing 561. So surprisingly, it uses less power while using ray tracing, which is quite strange. But then again, so does the 3090 Ti. So I don't know why the NVIDIA cards... I would expect ray tracing to be even higher in terms of the power consumption. So it is surprising to see that RT results use less power than the non-ray tracing. That is interesting. But it's still 561. That's still way too much power. Maximum power consumption. So this is the firmware. 601. 601. Okay, Furmark, with Furmark, the 5090 literally exceeds the maximum rating of the connector. That is not safe. That is a fire hazard. That is a fire hazard because the connector is rated for 600 watts. But I have a video on the channel where we did the math. We calculated the amount of current that can safely go through those wires. And there's not a lot of margin on those cables. And I did the math with the 4090 and the 4080. And I concluded that 450 watts is safe. But anything over that is very questionable. At least for like long durations. So I can only imagine if someone's playing a game for like 4 hours or longer with a 5090 and their average power consumption is close to the limit that the cable is capable of, that is not a very good thing. Like, that to me is very concerning. So this is the biggest letdown. Honestly, this is the biggest letdown, is the fact that it pulls this much electricity while gaming. Very, very disappointing to see that. It's almost like this power consumption number, it literally eliminates any sort of positive aspect that it has in terms of being faster than a 4090. Because it's just, I don't know, man. Like, that, to me, like, it's almost 600. The cable's rated for 600. People have burned out their connectors already with a GPU that didn't even pull 600. So it's like, I don't know. It's like, oh, we revised the spec. There's no more problem. Well, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. Only time will tell.
I am still struggling whether I should go to Taiwan. I have lined up a scalper who would queue up for me 24 hours in advance. The problem is the shops are saying they already have 5080s in stock, but 5090.
Yeah, that is in line with everything that I have heard. So I have heard that at launch, the 5090, there will only be a handful of stores globally that will actually have them. So within Taiwan, like, I'm not familiar with how many different stores are in the Taipei area that sell stuff like graphics cards, but I wouldn't be surprised if only a few of them actually have 5090s. And of those few that actually have 5090s, they may only have like 2 or 3, maybe no more than 5. They have a handful of them for sale. You can count the total number of stock on one hand for a lot of these stores. So the launch is probably going to be a paper launch. We won't really see the actual supply of these cards pick up until April. So if you really, really want one, there's not a lot of good strategies besides, trying to get a scalper to help you, or just somebody like a family member or someone who can like go and try to buy one for you, and then you pay them or whatever. Like, that's really the only thing I can think of, is like try to use your circle of friends. It sounds so bad to say that, but it's like friends and family are really the only way I can think of to try to get one of these.
So stick with the 4090 for gaming, got it, thanks.
Well, so that's another thing too. If you already have a 4090 and looking at these power consumption numbers, it's very hard to justify the upgrade. I'll be honest with you guys, it's very hard to justify spending this much money knowing that this GPU performs like this, it uses this much electricity while gaming. And remember, this is just the graphics card. This isn't even the whole computer. Tech Power Up's numbers, this is the card only. This is GPU only. This is not counting the CPU, all the other things in the computer are not included in this number. So the total system draw is going to be significantly more than 600 watts. So let's think about that. The 9800X3D, this CPU pulls about 50 something watts. So you add, let's say you add 55 watts to that number. Now you add all the other things, the motherboard, all the RGB, I hope you don't have a second graphics card in the system, because the second graphics card will have to be added. So, it's just, to me, it just doesn't look very good. For strictly gaming, it doesn't look good. It doesn't look like a good choice because it's so much wattage, it's so expensive, and it's complete overkill for most people. Realistically, this further solidifies my requirements for people that wanted a 5090. Like, the number one requirement is you have to have a 4K monitor. If you don't have a 4K monitor, you should not buy this graphics card. You should, if you have a 4090 and you're on 1440p, you're way better off sticking with the 4090. Like, way better off. This is going to create levels of complexity that the average gamer is not prepared to deal with. They're literally not prepared to deal with this. So I'm serious when I say this, because most gamers are probably using an 850 watt power supply, like a Corsair, like a Corsair HX 850 or maybe an HX 1000 or something along those lines, or an EVGA power supply. Good luck getting warranty support on that. So it's, if something goes wrong. So it's like, most people are not, their computer is not prepared to handle this. Like, the case airflow needs to be very, very good. The power supply has to be very, very good. In fact, the power supply is very important. The CPU, you're going to want a CPU that is as energy efficient as possible, as humanly possible. You do not want to put a 250 plus watt CPU in your computer, or if you already have a 13900K or a 14900K, I don't even need to go there. It's like, I don't even need to go there. We talked about that like a few minutes ago. So it's very, very bad idea. Very bad idea. Going to need RAM that isn't high. You're going to need RAM that runs... yes. You're going to need RAM that's running at low voltage. And yeah, because here's the other thing too. The other thing too about this cooler is it's not quiet. This is not... so if you want Founders Edition... okay, let's move on to another topic here. The noise. The noise. Thank you, Tech Power Up, for proving me right. This is not a quiet graphics card. The Founders Edition is... it's not like terribly loud. It's not loud, but it's not quiet. 40 dBA is all you need to know that this is not a quiet graphics card. Look at this. Check it out. Whoa. This thing is at the bottom of the list. 40 dBA. 40 dBA is audible. You can hear that. This is an audible graphics card. Now, it's not terribly loud because I am someone who has the 3090 Ti. The 3090 Ti is noisy. 3090 Ti Founders Edition is definitely audible. 42 dBA is definitely audible. Even when wearing headphones, even with the computer on the floor, you can still hear the 3090 Ti, which means the 5090 FE is a little bit quieter than the 3090 Ti. But if we look, 4090 is 35 dBA. So the 4090 is significantly quieter than the 5090. On top of that, the quietest graphics card that I have ever owned, which I don't actually see on here, but the cooler is here. The 6800 XT is like pure silence. The 6800 XT is a GPU. I'm talking about the AMD reference 6800 and 6900 XT. That is my favorite AMD reference card because it is dead silent. The numbers don't lie. 27 dBA is extremely quiet. You cannot hear a 6900 XT over your case fans, even under full 4K gaming load. The 27 dBA. Meanwhile, we have, where is the 4090? 4090, 35 dBA. It is louder, but it is not loud enough, meaning 35 dBA is what I call the magic number. If the card is less than or equal to 35 dBA, it is considered a quiet graphics card. If the number is greater than 35 dBA, it is audible. And if the number is greater than 38, it is, shall we say, loud enough to hear without being annoyingly loud. Once it goes above 42 dBA, which is where the 3090 Ti is, it is loud and obnoxious. And just to put things into perspective, the 5700 XT is 44.7. The 5700 XT is a blower style cooler. This is a blower style cooler. So look at this. The 5090 at 40 dBA is about 4 decibels quieter than a blower style cooler. That is not that great. However, I do recognize that it's dissipating about 600 watts. So the fact that it manages to be less noise than a blower style while also dissipating 600 watts is very impressive. So yes, it is a very impressive engineering marvel, but at the end of the day, it is not a quiet graphics card. So anyone hoping that the Founders Edition was going to be some magic silent graphics card is going to be utterly disappointed because the numbers don't lie. This is going to be an audible graphics card. Not terribly loud, but it's not quiet. So let's put that to rest. This is not a quiet graphics card, but it's not an obnoxiously loud graphics card, if that makes sense. Meaning you will hear it while gaming, but it's not going to annoy you. It's not going to be like so blaringly loud like a gaming laptop. A gaming laptop is about 50 to 54 dBA to give people an idea of how noisy a gaming laptop is compared to this. So yeah, this is still way better than a gaming laptop. But then again, so is a blower style discrete graphics card. So it's looking more and more like the cracks in the 5090 are starting to show through, at least for the Founders Edition. So let's take a look at now the temperatures. So this is the thermal analysis. So the temperature, actually, hold on. Let's do another really good thing that Tech Power Up does. They actually normalize the noise. So here they will normalize to a specific dBA and then measure the temperature to show how well the cooler is actually capable of performing. So here, they're going to test to 35 dBA because, what did I say earlier? 35 dBA is the magic number. If your graphics card is less than 35, it is quiet. If it is more than 35, it is audible. You can hear it. So that is why I like the Tech Power Up test to 35 dBA. This tells me that the person reviewing it Wizard really knows his stuff. He knows what it means to like the actual numbers that matter to people who use the equipment every day. So 35 is the magic number. So here we go. Check this out. Bam. And there we go. The magic number. The 5090 Founders Edition, when noise normalized, runs at 83 degrees Celsius. And then when the memory is measured, so they measure the memory temperature, the memory gets up to 95.4 degrees Celsius. So this is when they try to force the GPU to be quiet or right at the limit of quiet and audible. And now look at the memory getting cooked at 95.4 degrees Celsius. So that is not very good. So guys, it's starting to look like The AIBs have a window of opportunity here. The AIBs have a way, they have a path to victory. Asus, the doors are open. The doors are open for you to fly that giant astral star destroyer in and take over, because nvidia is burning up here. Nvidia is in the spotlight and they need some help. Call in the reinforcements. Call in the Supreme. Call in the Astral. Call in all the elite GPUs. Calling in all board partners. Calling in all board partners. We need a backup. We need some backup here. Asus, we need you. We need you. PNY, get in here. Zotac, get over here. Because this thing, we need this guy, and we need some backup. We need the Zotac. We need all of them. Because this thing is cooking right now and needs some help. 95 degrees Celsius. Meanwhile, the memory on the 4080 Super with a thick boy cooler is 68 degrees. So yeah, the numbers don't lie. We looked at power consumption. Let's look at overclock. Well, actually, what is this efficiency and clock speeds? Efficiency. Okay, it's like this doesn't really mean much when the thing is pulling that much electricity. So, all right, where's overclocking? So here they did overclocking. Overclocking the 5090. Oh, check it out. PCIe 16 lanes of Gen 5 bandwidth. It's got all the bandwidth it needs. It's got too much bandwidth. Okay, here we go. They overclocked it to the max. Oh, Blackwell. With Blackwell, nvidia has removed the hotspot sensor. There is no more hotspot sensor. I wonder why they removed the hotspot sensor. What was the reason for removing the hotspot sensor? Now there's no way to tell how hot it truly is at the hottest point. So all you get is GPU temperature and memory temperature. So here we go. They overclocked it. What did he overclock it to? Okay, so he overclocked it to... He overclocked it about 300 megahertz. That's pretty good on the boost. So 330 megahertz about. And he got about 9 frames. 9 to 10 frames. That's pretty good. I don't even know what... I'm scared to know what the power consumption is, though, when he does that, though. Like... I would definitely not overclock the FE long term, just academically to see like what it does, but not actually use it like that, like long term. Not a good idea. Because the card runs so cool, it's not needed. Okay. Let's look at some of these numbers here. Let's look at some... Okay, what's a game that on this list that I actually pay attention to? Black Myth Wukong. Here we go. Black Myth Wukong. Let's check it out. Okay, skip over 1080. Skip over 1440. No one cares. All right, 4K. Here we go. Check it out. The ultimate performance. The ultimate performance. 5090 Founders Edition. Black Myth Wukong. 58 frames per second. Whoa-wee, that's good. Woo-wee, that's good. 58 frames per second. This game is insanely hard to run. 58 FPS. Incredible. Look at how much distance there is between the 4090 and the 5090. The gap between these two graphics cards is the most pronounced gap out of all the GPUs that they looked at for the Black Myth Wukong 4K. Incredible. That is astonishing. That is almost... This is almost twice the performance of 7900 XTX. That is fabulous. The XTX does 31 frames per second, and the 5090 does 58 frames per second. Wow. That's amazing. $2,000 to almost double the frame rate if you have a 7900 XTX. And if you have, it gets even better. It gets even better. If you're on a 3090, check this out. Way down here, the little 3090, is doing 25 frames per second. This thing is doing more than double the performance of 3090. Wow, that is actually quite impressive. Quite impressive. More than double a 3090's performance in Black Myth Wukong. That's really incredible. Okay, what's another game here that interests me? Okay, Elden Ring is kind of like what? Okay, first of all, Elden Ring, if you actually play Elden Ring legit, you can't run this game, to my knowledge, unless they patch it. You can't actually run Elden Ring outside of 60 FPS because it breaks the game physics. But I think people can install a mod to like make the game run outside of 60 FPS. But do note that you could end up getting banned if you're caught playing online because this game is a multiplayer game and you make it go over 60. So anyway, just keep that in mind. But these numbers look at 4K. So check this out. So, okay, this is very high. Wait, wow. 184 frames per second. This is actually not what I saw from... Wasn't there another reviewer that did Elden Ring? No, not Horror Unboxed. Somebody did Elden Ring in their video review or something, and it was not like this. But anyway, this is like really, really high, theoretically high numbers, but I don't know how relevant this is to this game. Ghost of Tsushima. Here's another one that's another really good game. So this is another really, really good one. So here we go. 129 FPS. Actually... now I remember what I originally wanted to title this episode of Tech Thursdays. I wanted to title this stream, The Era of 4K Gaming is Here. Because in a way, the 5090, if you look beyond the problems with the power consumption, the 5090 does usher in like true 4K gaming. Because... now, it's not about, oh, can my graphics card maintain above 60 frames per second at 4K? This GPU is so much better at 4K than everything else that it is actually really, really good for 4K. The 4090 was also very good for 4K when it came out. But it has aged. It's now more than 2 years old. There are newer games that are way more demanding now. We just looked at Black Myth Wukong. 4090 can't even get close to 60 FPS in that game. So now we have... now, granted, 5090 falls short too, but it's so close. It's so close, which is incredibly impressive, considering how hard Black Myth Wukong is to run. So, and that is without the gimmicky frame gen that this GPU features. So, but we'll get into the frame gen later. So, this is actually very, very good, because now... if somebody has, for example, a 120 hertz 4K monitor, like an older 4K gaming monitor, like my 4K gaming monitor is a 144 hertz 4K monitor. Now I can maintain above 120 FPS in Ghost of Tsushima. So it's really good in that regard. So, because I honestly feel like the only benchmarks that matter for this GPU is the 4K benchmarks. None of the other benchmarks, like the lower resolutions, don't matter. Because when you go down the resolution stack, they start getting closer and closer together. So you're not gaining the value if you're gaming at the lower resolution. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, you're better off with the 4090 or something older if you're going to stay at like 1080p, for example. Same deal with 1440. But with 4K... this GPU really shines at 4K because the other GPUs are just... 4K is just really, really hard for the older GPUs. So yeah, really, really good result here. How about ultra wide? Ultra wide is easier to run than 4K. So it's like, it's almost like 4K, but not as hard. It's harder than 1440, but it's easier than 4K. Okay, what else? Hogwarts Legacy is another good one. Okay, Hogwarts Legacy. Yeah, Hogwarts Legacy can be a challenging game to run. Look at this. Wow, I completely forgot that Hogwarts was really this hard to run at 4K. I don't remember it being this hard. Like, I remember these other GPUs were well above 60. But see, here's another prime example. Hogwarts Legacy is about to be 2 years old. This game is almost 2 years old. It'll be 2 years old in February. And it's crazy to think that it's been that long already. So that, yeah, this game came out in 2023. So here we have the 4090 is less than 70 FPS. But see, this is an example of what I mean by the 4090 was good for 4K because you could maintain above 60. Now with the 5090, it's no longer a question of can I maintain above 60. It's like, yes, it maintains above 60 with a decent margin. Like, see how wide the gap is? Again, the gap between 4090 and 5090 is way more than like the XTX and the 4090, or even the 4080 and the 4090. Meaning the 4090 is closer to a 4080 and an XTX than the 5090. So the 5090 is incredibly good for 4K. And that's why, now you guys see why my number one requirement for a 5090 owner is you must have a 4K monitor. Otherwise, you're wasting money. Or you're just not doing it right. Like, it's just weird. So 4K is like requirement number one because that's where it actually shows its true potential. Anything lower, and it's like, oh, now it's basically like a 4090. So, okay, so now Horizon Forbidden West. Because, I mean, look at this. Look at this. The distance between the 4080 and the 4090 is the same distance as the 4090 and the 5090 at 1080p. This is why it's like, who cares about 1080p for this GPU? That's like a waste of money. Meanwhile, at 4K, look at the difference. Look at how much more pronounced the bar chart is. This is where it's justified. Also, 32 gigs of VRAM. 32 gigs of VRAM is more than enough for 4K gaming. In fact, 24 gigabytes is still more than enough for 4K gaming. All right, Like a Dragon 8. Is this, oh, this is, oh, yeah, this is the game from last year. Yeah, there's a new one coming out next month, I believe. Like a Dragon, Infinite Wealth. So here we go again. 134 frames per second. 134 frames per second. Versus 89, versus 69, versus 69, versus... So, yeah, like, this is furthering the narrative of this is a 4K graphics card. Because this graphics card is showing that we are literally, like, only one generation away from mastering 4K resolution. Games like Black Myth Wukong show that we're not quite there. But the 5090 is so close. It is so close to hitting the target for like all things 4K. Ratchet and Clank is another good. Like, look at this. Look at that. Look at this. Who would game at 1080p, drop $2,000 to upgrade from a 4090 to a 5090? They're gonna spend $2,000 to gain 5 frames per second in Ratchet and Clank on their 1080p monitor. See, it's a joke. It's an absolute joke. 4K is where it matters. 4K is where you see the difference. In fact, this is a title where, man, the 4090 looks like a really nice 4K GPU in this title also. That's pretty impressive. 120 FPS in Ratchet and Clank at 4K on a 4090. Meanwhile, this 5090 is almost 160 FPS. Silent Hill. Hold on. Let's look at Resident Evil 4. Resident Evil 4 is also like a really hard game to run. Okay, so this one's actually not that hard to run anymore. There's a lot of GPUs that can do really good numbers at 4K in here. Even the 4080 does 80 in this one. But look at this. Almost double. In Resident Evil 4, the 5090 is almost 2x the 4080. Now, obviously, this is apples and oranges because these GPUs are different price points. But I'm just saying, like, look at that performance uplift. From 4090 to 5090, that is still an amazing jump. Amazing jump. Silent Hill 2. Silent Hill 2 at 4K is tough. This game is hard to run. Very hard to run. And here's another really good showing for the 5090. No, up until now, Silent Hill 2 was impossible to maintain above 60 frames per second at 4K resolution. Even the mighty 4090 succumbed to the Silent Hill when it comes to 4K resolution, but not the 5090. Oh no. The 5090 can crush through the Silent Hill fog, and it can go to 69 FPS at 4K. That is very impressive considering how hard this game is to run. I think this game has some form of ray tracing turned on, looking at these results though, because I don't think the XTX is supposed to be that far apart from the 4080 in this title. That's like a 10 FPS difference. So they must have some kind of ray tracing or something turned on. Or something's turned on here that makes it look kind of weird just looking at the other results. But still, despite whatever they turned on, it's still the chart topper by a large margin there. Yeah, it might have been like Lumen or something. It might have like Lumen or something. Alright, Space Marines 2 is another really good one that came out last year. Like, I mean, look at this. Look at these 1440 results. Look, this is why I keep saying you better be on a 4K monitor if you truly want this graphics card. This is like 1440p. What? Okay, 4K. Meanwhile, 4K, big difference. Big difference. So that shows the thing that stands out to me, though, looking at this, is looking at the 3090 all the way at the bottom of the chart, and then looking at the 5090. Because most people skip a generation. So the people who are truly going to consider the upgrading to a 5090 are people who are on a 3090 or a 3090 Ti or some kind of 30 series card, or maybe they're on a 2080 Ti, which isn't even on this list. So this is a massive upgrade for those individuals. But if you're not accustomed to high wattage GPUs and how to handle them, this is going to be a huge rude awakening. But yeah, most people are going to be on 30 series because 30 series to 50 series looks really good. 40 series to 50 series is questionable unless you're on a 4K monitor. Stalker 2, okay, Starfield. Starfield, once again, it just shreds through the unoptimized mess that Starfield has basically been its entire existence. So this is another decent uplift. Although you're paying for the uplift. Star Wars Outlaws is another really hard game to run from what I've heard. Now, I have not played this game. But again, the most pronounced uplift is going to be at 4K. So Star Wars Outlaws, interestingly enough, Star Wars Outlaws, I was unaware of this until I saw this chart. Not even the 4090. The 4090, you can kind of like round it up to 60. It's like it can almost hit 60 average. But the average being 59.6 basically means that half of the time it's sub 60 and half of the time it's over 60. So that is the reason why, yeah, the 5090 is true 4K. This is called the true 4K. Where the 4090 was a true 4K, this one is a true 4K. I mean, look at that. Even in Star Wars Outlaws, one of the hardest games to run that came out last year, this thing is pushing 77.5 frames per second. The game is not nearly as hard to run as like Silent Hill or Black Myth Wukong, but man, impressive numbers. This is a true 4K. I mean, look at the 3090. The 3090 does 31 frames per second. The 3090 gives you the console experience at 4K in Star Wars Outlaws. Meanwhile, 5090, 77.5. Okay, The Last of Us. This is another one that's a really hard game to run. So, not super hard, because this game is now, I think, on PC, it's coming up on 2 years old. It'll be 2 years old in March, I believe. So, similar to Hogwarts Legacy, 108 FPS. These are just raw performance numbers. This is the full, pure rasterization numbers. Unless the game engine has, like, built-in software ray tracing. Then you can't really turn off the RT, like we saw in Silent Hill 2. But yeah, this is 108 in Last of Us Part 1. Last of Us Part 1 is a very hard game to run. Look at the XTX. The XTX is managing to stay above 60. It's averaging around 64 frames per second in The Last of Us Part 1 at 4K resolution. Meanwhile, the 4090 does quite a bit better at 76, but the 5090 is so much better, it pushes it all the way up to 108 frames per second. Very impressive stuff. For those of you on 3090, man, 3090, 46 frames per second. 46 frames per second. It is really weird that they're showing like 4070 Ti. 4070 Ti does not have enough VRAM to be a proper 4K GPU, so it's like, what? But I get why it's there. It's because that's what they tested. The Witcher 3 is kind of an old game. I guess we'll just look at this one briefly. So, yeah, you can tell it's an old game. Like, basically 300 frames per second at 4K. Yeah, this thing's very easy to run. Witcher 3 is not hard to run anymore. Like, this game is from 2015. It's super old now. 9-year-old game. All right, average FPS. Average FPS at 4K resolution. The geometric mean was 133.5. The median was 129. Those are very high numbers for 4K. Like, that's pretty impressive. 147 FPS is the average over how many games? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 25. He tested 25 games. Out of 25 games, the average FPS was 144 frames per second. The 4090 was 109. That's why the 4090 is still in my mind a 4K graphics card. But you can see, and that's the reason why, guys, if you're on a 4090, you need to skip the 5090. Most of you, I know some of you are going to get the 5090. Like, I know Super Googly is going to get a 5090, or at least wants to get a 5090. But the average person with a 4090, especially if you're on a 1440p monitor, this is a complete skip. I'm being totally transparent. If I was not on a 4K monitor, because I'm on a 4K monitor, we're literally using one to stream right now. If I was not on a 4K monitor and I had my 4090 and I was on 1440p still from like 2017, 5090 is a complete skip. I don't want to deal with the power consumption. I don't want to deal with the possibility of the connector meltdown because it's running at the power limit all the time. It's just too much complexity, all the heat, all the noise. I don't want to deal with it. If I'm on 1440, this is a complete skip. If I'm on 4K, completely different story. Because look at this, 4K, it's delivering the numbers. It's delivering the numbers. You're seeing it push almost 150 frames per second. This literally shows me that for the first time, there is an actual graphics card that can average above my monitor's 144 hertz refresh rate at 4K resolution. So that to me is like, whoa, this is a sign that we are approaching the era of like 4K has been surpassed. Like 4K is like a mountain that hardware has been trying to climb for a while now. Basically, since I would probably say the very first what I call 4K graphics card was the 2080 Ti. The 2080 Ti was the first 4K GPU for those who wanted 4K in 2018. Otherwise, it wasn't really feasible for most GPUs. They just couldn't do it. They didn't have enough horsepower. I mean, they didn't have enough cores, shaders, whatever. They didn't have enough VRAM, and they just didn't have like a wide enough memory bandwidth for it to even matter. Now, we're finally there where you can literally drive a high refresh monitor with a GPU at 4K resolution. So we are literally entering into the era of 4K gaming, at least on PC. So this is very nice to see, but at the cost of very high power consumption. So what it means is we're not quite there yet because the power consumption is still it's not good. You know, like we literally looked at it, 580 something watts is just too much electricity to be practical for most people. So we go to relative performance here. I don't see this very useful. I wish they would have done like, I wish they would have shown some other graphics card. Like what Tech Power Up should have done here is they should have taken the 3090 and they should have set 3090 as the 100% baseline and gone up from there instead of showing this at 100 and then everything else underneath it, because you can't say, oh, the 4090 is 74% of the 100% of the 5090. That meaning you cannot say that the 4090 is what, 26%, or you can't say that the 5090 is 26% faster than the 4090 from this graph. You have to do the math a different way to calculate what the actual uplift is. It's not going to be 26, just looking at these numbers. So, let's see. What do they have some actual charts here? Okay, 5090 versus 7900 XTX rasterization 4K. I mean, it ranges from 34 to 119, depending on the title. And then against the 4090, it ranges from 13.8% to 52% faster. So, you know, and then they also show against the 3090 Ti, they do 73 to 175.
Do you think I should do a new setup for 5090 and keep the 9800X3D 4090 setup for the living room? Currently my living room TV is connected to a 4090 laptop, which is like a 4070 for desktop. Both connected
to 4K. Okay, got it. So your living room setup is a 4090 laptop. The living room TV is connected to a 4090 laptop. But okay, my question to you there is, why do you need to change that setup? Because I actually like the idea where you have the laptop as kind of like a mobile gaming machine. So you have it connected to the TV when you want to use it as kind of like a desktop, but you still have the portability. So if you remove that and you put the 9800X3D and 4090 there, I mean, now you don't have that portability with that. But I guess it's like, okay, well now the laptop's just a mobile device all the time then, at that point. You know what I mean? So it's like if you want basically, if you want to set that up in the living room as a static setup, like meaning your desktop PC that you have right now, put that as a static living room PC, and you don't move it anymore, and it's just there. I mean, yeah, I guess it's just I like the idea of having the way you have the laptop set up. So changing that, it's up to you. Like I personally would probably keep the laptop with the TV the way you have it. That way you have the option. But you know, if it doesn't need to be there, like if the laptop can just be mobile all the time and you don't have to dock it or plug it into the TV anytime you're using the living room, you know, then you know whatever. But I kind of think like to me, I personally also use a laptop with a docking station, so I totally understand like that kind of setup where you have the laptop connected to the TV via either the cable or you're using some kind of docking station, you know, that kind of thing. So that is a very nice setup to have. But if you change that to a static setup where the desktop is connected to the TV all the time, I don't know. Personally, I'm not a big fan of having a desktop computer connected to a TV in a living room. I would rather go the laptop route for a mobile docking setup. But I mean, if you want to build the other computer, like if you're okay with building a whole nother computer and then moving your main computer into the living room, but now your laptop's no longer needed to function as like a media PC, then I mean, I guess it's just I kind of like the way your setup is now for the TV. But yeah, I know how that feels though, like wanting to build a whole other computer. I mean, I'm one to talk when it comes to building other computers. But yeah, the what would you build though? It would be 5090 plus what? 9950X 3D? When that comes out in March? I mean, that's the only thing I can think of. Like, I'm just thinking from my point of view. Like, if I was in your position and I'm like, okay, if I want to move my quote unquote old computer as like a secondary gaming station or like a living room PC, what would I actually build to replace it as the main computer? Well, the only thing I can think of is 5090, assuming it's on a 4K monitor, 5090 plus 9950X 3D. Like, that's really the only one that I personally would go with. Like, that's either that or the 90, well, I wouldn't say 9800X 3D. And people are going to be like, well, why are you not going to recommend that? Because the 9800X 3D, first of all, there already is a 9800X 3D, and that's paired up with a 4090 already. So it's like, I typically don't recommend having two systems with the exact same CPUs, if that makes sense, because now you can't make any comparisons that way. So if you already have the 9800X 3D, the newer computer would then have to be a 9950X 3D. I mean, that's what I plan on upgrading to later this year. So, I mean, that's what I would go with. Like, if I was building 5090, my go-to CPU choice would definitely be 9950X 3D. Like, that would be the one to get. Because the funny thing is, the 5090 has 32 gigabytes of VRAM. It literally has 32 gigabytes of VRAM, which means it can technically scale to a 32-core Threadripper. Keep that in mind. A 32-core Threadripper, the 5090 can handle a 32-core Threadripper because it's 1 gigabyte of VRAM per physical core. That's the rule of thumb for building a high-end desktop. So if I have a 32-core Threadripper, my GPU must have 32 gigabytes of VRAM. If I can't get 32 gigabytes of VRAM on a single graphics card, I have to go to a professional graphics card because those do exist. So you end up spending a lot of money. The higher end your CPU is, or the higher end your GPU is, the more higher end the rest of the build ends up becoming. So for example, if we have a 32 core Threadripper with a 32 gigabyte 5090, that means we need to have minimum 128 gigabytes of system RAM. See why one component being super high end will literally drive the price up of everything else around it. Then on top of that, you must have at minimum a 1200 watt power supply to be able to handle all of that. Because it's 600 watts for the GPU, it's like 300 watts for the Threadripper, so that already puts you at 900 watts plus all the other stuff in the computer. So, you know, like I said, minimum 1200 watts. So, because you don't want to be running right up against the thing. So, that's kind of the way I look at it when it comes to building these type of super high-end desktops. So, but again, against the 3090 Ti, this thing is like 73 to 175% faster. Now, that Like a Dragon game is like an outlier, though, because that's way up there. But still, these are some really good uplifts. Performance per dollar is basically terrible for 1080p. Let's see if the value proposition goes up at 1080. Okay, look, at 4K, it actually climbs up. At 4K, it's better value than a 3090 Ti, a 3090, and a 4090. Which means, okay, it's interesting they're putting these other prices in here. I don't know why they're putting like 1750. This thing's not going to sell for 1750. But I guess they're trying to like estimate some AIB cards in here. So at 4K, oh, but this isn't even MSRP. I guess, like, okay, this whole thing is pointless because they aren't even showing 4090 at MSRP. Like, unless it's actually listed twice. Like, I don't, whatever. It's like $2,400 for 4090. I mean, whatever. So that's the used market. Cost per frame. It's terrible value at 1080p. It's terrible value at 1440p. And it's actually better than 3090 and 3090 Ti at 4K. That's hilarious because this further proves the narrative that if you don't have a 4K monitor, you should not buy a 5090. It's that simple. Because the 3090 and 3090 Ti are offering better value at 1440p than the 5090. That is hilarious. But I'm not surprised. Performance per... Okay, here we go. Performance per MSRP. So it's at 1440p, it does do better than the previous, like, Ampere and Turing, but only those, which means it loses to 4090 at 1440p in the value proposition, and then at 4K, okay, the narrative doesn't change, it just gets closer to the 4090. So, and that's because it's $1,600 versus $2,000. So the 4090 is offering 12% better performance per price, I guess performance per dollar, or per MSRP dollar at 4K. So did they do performance per watt? I think they did that at efficiency. Yeah, they did performance per watt. So energy efficiency. This is kind of dumb, though, the way they show this, because it's like, this is very misleading, because, like, oh, it's the only cards that are more energy efficient than it is the 4070 Super, the 4080, and the 4080 Super. That, I question showing those cards in the first place, because it's like, we know how much power those cards use compared to this. The point is, this card just straight up uses way more electricity than those. So, and the fact that these are only single-digit efficiency gains over this is kind of bad. It doesn't paint a good picture. Watt per frame. It's identical to the 4090. So again, that's where the 30% more performance for 30% more power consumption comes from. Voltage frequency curve. I know that the boost clock is actually less than the 4090, but that's kind of irrelevant. So let's look at the... Did they do anything with the power limit here? No. Okay. So let's look at tech power-ups, value, and conclusion. So here's what they said was good and what was bad. Okay, the good. Incredible performance. DLSS 4 frame gen and transformers upscaling. Compact, dual slot design. 32 gigabytes of VRAM. Highly energy efficient. Highly energy efficient? I mean, I guess, but this doesn't take into account the user experience. So I don't know if I would include this. I would remove this bullet point and not mention it. I would not put it as a negative or a positive. Idle fan stop, this shouldn't even be here. Support for HDMI 2.1 and DisplayPort 2.1. This is nice because without this, the monitor manufacturers have no incentive to do this. However, AMD, it is worth noting that the 7900 XTX and the 7900 XT, I don't know about the lower end cards, but the higher end RDNA 3 cards already support HDMI 2.1 and DisplayPort 2.1. So AMD's kind of been ahead of NVIDIA when it comes to the bleeding edge of display output specifications, but it's like they were too early because there was literally no monitors that could do DisplayPort 2.1. There was like that one Samsung Odyssey ultra wide that you could never buy, and it's like that was like the one monitor. And now I don't even know like how many Samsung even manufactured. Anyway, only time will tell, but you can expect newer monitors are going to come out that have DisplayPort 2.1. The cabling for them is going to be a whole nother level of complexity that we're not going to get into on this stream. But I'll just say that these cables are going to be extremely short, or they're going to be extremely expensive, active cables, if you need them to be a certain length. PCI Express 5.0, yeah, that's definitely a positive. Good video encode decode, that's another positive. So I would say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 positive bullet points. So they got 7 positives. And then here we have the negatives. Very expensive. Very high idle multi-monitor video power. I mean, they left out very high gaming power consumption. Okay. Very expensive, very high power consumption in general. Fans are not quiet during gaming, like I said. Memory overclocking, artificially limited by the driver. This is probably because of how hot the memory is running. Because memory is very sensitive to temperature. If your memory is running hot and you try to overclock it, you're probably going to run into unstable memory and you're going to see artifacting in games. And that's probably why NVIDIA artificially limited memory overclocking. Because it's running at like 94 degrees or something like ridiculous. So I want to see what was their overall impression here. Okay, this paragraph is a very good paragraph actually. The Blackwell architecture introduces several architectural improvements under the hood, like giving all shaders the ability to run FP32 or integer 32 instructions. On the 40 series, only half the cores have that ability. The tensor cores are now accessible from the shaders through a new Microsoft DirectX API, and they now support FP4 and Int4 instructions, which run at lower precision but much faster with less memory usage. It is because of FP4 and Int4 that NVIDIA is able to claim lower memory usage for the same image quality. It is because of this. But there could be caveats. So meaning the model has to be very precise and accurate for this to actually work in a tangible way without it being a blurry mess. There's numerous additional architectural improvements we talked about. Okay, so compared to the last generation, 4090, the 5090 increases the number to 21,760. So it's got a lot of CUDA cores, up from the 16,384. It now uses GDDR7. I think everybody watching the stream already knows that. They bumped the memory bus from 384 to 512. This is actually why I thought this was supposed to be a Titan, because they don't normally call 90 cards 512-bit cards, 90 cards, which results in a staggering 1.8 terabytes per second memory bandwidth. Yes, that's terabytes, not terabits. That's a lot. That's a lot of memory bandwidth. From a fabrication perspective, nothing has changed, though. Blackwell. Okay, so here is where... Okay. This is where, when I read this part, what I'm about to read, this section, is the explanation that opened my eyes to the truth when I saw the power consumption numbers. Because at first, I was like, man, they say it's 575 watts. It's literally only going to pull like 350 watts max while gaming. But no. This paragraph explains why it uses so much electricity. From a fabrication perspective, nothing has changed. Blackwell is built on the same 5 nanometer TSMC node as last generation's 40 series. NVIDIA claims this is a 4 nanometer process, but during ADA it was confirmed that NVIDIA 4N is actually not TSMC 4N4, but 5 nanometer. At the end of the day, the actual number doesn't matter. Okay, but see, because they're stuck using the same node, they had to make do with what they had. So they had to basically make lemonade out of lemons, and the result was you get a 5090, but now it is a mini thermonuclear reactor. Now it's going to be a space heater while gaming. So that is the problem when you're stuck on the same node. So again, they're looking to software for the vast majority of the reason to upgrade. The incentive to upgrade is going to be multi-frame gen. If you don't like multi-frame gen, don't buy this graphics card, because it's like, you know, unless you're on 4K and unless you're on like 30 series, anyone on a 4090, the smart move is probably not to buy this. So we upgraded to the test system, blah, 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 blah. So it's like, okay, 9800 X3D, it's the only one that can hold up, and blah, blah, blah. Okay, so they talk about like the other stuff, but here they give the numbers. So at 4K, with pure rasterization, without any ray tracing or DLSS, no cheats, no handicapping, no kneecapping previous generations or competitors. So none of this, no cheat codes, just straight up mano a mano, pure rasterization at 4K. They measured 35% performance uplift over the 4090. While this is certainly impressive, it is considerably less than what we got from 3090. Okay, why? It should be 3090, not 3090 Ti. Yeah, they're doing 3090 Ti. That's kind of dumb. To 4090, 51%. But okay, but see, they're showing how impressive this was, because the 4090 was 51% faster than not a 3090, because I think it was like 70-something%. It is 51% faster than 3090 Ti. 3090 Ti. Now, meanwhile, 5090 is only 35% faster than 4090. NVIDIA still achieves their twice the performance every second generation. That's apparently this is a rule. I've never heard anyone quote this from NVIDIA. This is a rule that NVIDIA has. This is a rule that NVIDIA apparently NVIDIA has a rule. Now I actually know. Now I know one of their secrets. I did not know this. Twice the performance every second generation. Twice the performance every second generation. Meaning 30 series to 50 series is twice the performance. The 5090 is twice as fast as 3090 Ti. So when you look at it that way, it is good. There really isn't much on the market that the 5090 can be compared to. It's 75% faster than AMD's 7900 XTX at 4K resolution. AMD has confirmed that they are not going for the high end this generation. It is expected that okay, we already know this. Okay. Compared to the second fastest Ada, the 4080 Super, the performance is the increase is 72. Like, okay. Yeah, wow. Okay. Yeah, but this thing's also like half the price? So, there's no question. 5090 is the card you want for 4K gaming. 4K gaming at maximum settings with all RT eye candy enabled. Okay, and then he goes on to say, I guess you could run the card at 1440 at insanely high FPS, but considering the DLSS 4 will give you those FPS even at 4K, the only reason why you would want to do this is if you really want the lowest latency. But see, the problem is the 4090 already exists. I mean, I guess for people that don't have a 4090 or anything that's 40 series, maybe. I personally, if I have a 1440p monitor, I can't justify spending $2,000 or more on a graphics card. Like, I could literally buy like 2 laptops with that money. Like, that's stupid. So it's like, I can't do that. But if I'm at 4K, absolutely yes, I can consider it if I'm at 4K. Like, for all the reasons that were literally just mentioned here. Ray tracing, neural rendering. Okay, here's all the stuff that no one cares about. But yeah, this is all good. Oh, it is actually worth talking about this. I read the neural rendering part. Okay, for some reason I thought this was the AI. So hold on a second. NVIDIA's betting on ray tracing and Blackwell comes with several improvements. Our results show a several percent smaller performance loss by enabling RT. On top of that, the company is introducing several new optimizations. Neural rendering, which is exposed through a Microsoft. Here we go. Microsoft to the rescue. Microsoft to the rescue. Even though we're going to talk about Microsoft later in the stream, the second half of the stream is all going to be dedicated to Microsoft. But Microsoft DirectX API cooperative vectors. Now I know what it's called. I did not know its name. Now we have a name. Cooperative vectors. This is like saying Batman. This is literally Batman. This is literally like Bruce Wayne. So it's like now I know the identity of the new Microsoft DirectX API. It's called Cooperative Vectors. This ensures that the feature is universally available for all GPU vendors to implement, so game developers should be highly motivated to pick it up. Yeah, this is good. Now we're going to see basically what this means is neural rendering will go to Radeon and Arc. It's not going to be locked down to NVIDIA because it is exposed through cooperative vectors in the DirectX API. So yeah, NVIDIA, props to NVIDIA because they're the early adopters here. But obviously Radeon and Intel Arc are going to get this technology as well. So that's what that means. So there's more incentive to use it. Performance in RT is good. At 4K, we see 32% improvement over 4090. AMD's fastest XTX is way behind. The 5090 is 2.5x faster in this scenario. AMD has confirmed that for RDNA 4, they have put in some extra love for the RT core, so hopefully they can catch up a bit. Yeah, so we will be investigating that later on this quarter. But that's not for this stream. VRAM 5090 comes with a staggering 32 gigabytes. So again, this GPU, I feel like it's almost like wrong to market this to the gamers because the gamers are going to, it's like they're going to feel compelled to spend this much money on a graphics card when like half of that money could go to a decent graphics card that is more than capable, like for example a 5080, and the rest of that money could go to other things like, I don't know, maybe a new CPU and a motherboard and some RAM. So it's like you could literally get almost the entire computer upgrade for the money that you would spend on a 5090, you could literally buy a 5080 and like a CPU and a motherboard. And maybe even a monitor. Who knows? So I feel like it's kind of disingenuous of Nvidia to market the 5090 the way they are. Like, I personally think this should have been called a Titan, and it should have been sold as a prosumer product so that the gamers would have stayed away from it. Because I think a lot of people are going to overspend this generation on this, and they're going to be somewhat underwhelmed when they realize that they've turned their gaming cave into a sauna, and it's a nasty, sweaty mess while trying to game, for extended periods of time. And, that's like, the power connector is running at almost the limit of what it's supposed to be designed to handle. So it's like not a very good thing. Anyway, that's why I feel like it's more like a professional GPU, not a consumer GPU. Because in professional workstations, the connector is not going to get hot enough because typically those chassis, those cases are using front to back airflow that is very, very fast RPM, so it's loud, or it's a server environment, so then you don't have to worry about the connector melting because they have like literally copious amounts of cold air from the air conditioning system blowing over the GPU the whole time. It's like having dedicated AC air vents literally connected to the server rack. So it's like, it's a completely different environment, and that's the reason why I don't think this GPU should have been sold to gamers. Like, I still don't agree with how they're marketing this product. Especially with the power consumption, it's creating a lot of problems. It's going to create problems. I can see it now. I can already imagine the Reddit threads. Next month or 2 months from now. Or whatever. Someone does something wrong, use your air or whatever, and they burn their computer down or whatever it is. Someone's going to screw something up. You know it's going to happen. Modern games can't even make use of the 24 gigs, blah, blah, blah. That's questionable. Not today, but eventually, yes. So, for creators and AI, this capability is useful as it lets them run. Exactly. See, this is the reason why this GPU feels like it is not a gamer's GPU. It feels more like it's some kind of prosumer, almost like workstation type device or component. But it makes sense. This explanation is very good. I like this part of this paragraph. So, here we go. I like this whole section of what Wizard wrote here. For creators and AI, this capability is useful as it lets them run larger problems. But that also means that these people, these are not gamers, by the way. The people with deep pockets. We're talking companies, not individuals. So this is like almost like lawyer speech right here. With deep pockets. We're talking companies, game developer companies, AI companies, people who literally have angel investors and venture capitalists who gave them millions of dollars to start up the company. Like, that's what he means by the deep pockets. Will snatch away cards from gamers. When looked at from a different angle, 32 gigabytes makes sense. If you want to build a graphics card with a 512-bit memory bus, you will end up with 16 memory chips, which means your choices are either 16 gigabytes, meaning 1 gig per memory module, or 32, which means 2 gig per memory module. 16 gigabyte wouldn't make sense for the 59. I 100% agree. So 32 gigabytes is the only logical choice, despite the increase in cost and design complexity. So this card, if you truly want one of these and you are a gamer and you only want to play games, I'm sorry, but your chances of getting this are going to be very, very low. You're going to be competing with an army of scalpers. You're going to be competing with botnets that are probably also kind of like hosted by AI startup companies, or the AI startup companies have like hooks into those. systems to try to buy out the inventory as fast as they can and as many as they can. So it's basically the odds of a gamer, a typical gamer, getting their hands on a 5090 on launch day is very, very slim. Very slim. The odds are stacked against the gamers. Big time. The AI bros, they have all the advantages going into this. They literally have all the advantages going into this. They have the money. They can literally buy more than one. So they don't care. They can like buy one off of Best Buy. They can buy one off of another Best Buy. They can buy one off of, they can go to the micro centers. So they have their ways. They have their ways. So, I have seen how the crypto people do it. Now, the crypto people are not going to go after this card, so you do not have to worry about crypto. Crypto people don't go for these cards. They go for like 60 series cards, to my knowledge, so we don't have to worry about that. But the chances of a gamer getting this on launch day is slim to none. DLSS 4, and remember, I'm talking about launch day. I'm not talking about like 2 months from now, 4 months from now, 8 months from now. No, I'm talking about launch day. If a gamer wants one on launch day, they're going to have to jump through a lot of hoops to get one of these. It is not going to be easy. Especially considering the supply. Okay, then we don't need to talk about the upscaling because we already know all about this. Physical design, heat and noise, Okay, so let's talk about this, and this will probably be the last thing we talk about regarding the well, let's talk about this first for the Founders Edition specifically. The Founders Edition is a work of art. It looks incredible thanks to an impressive industrial design with intricate metal construction and a refreshed color theme. The same can't be said for the package, which is some eco-friendly paper, very disappointing for collectors. I 100% agree. Given the low volume of FE sales, this looks like some greenwashing campaign that will actually make people sad. Yes, Wizard is right on the mark, man. This is some, like, top-tier writing right here, the way this is written. Disassembly is complicated, but it does not feel like NVIDIA deliberately tried to make it hard. Given the compact dual-slot form factor for a 575-watt card, everything has to be crafted to perfection to ensure the card won't overheat. In our thermal testing, the card reached a maximum temperature of 77 degrees Celsius, which is actually impressive because this outperformed what I expected. I expected 83 degrees Celsius. I wasn't that far off though, because when Tech Power Up did the noise normalized test, they run right into 83 degrees. So it's right where I said it would be. Noise levels are pretty high though, with 40 dBA. Like I said, this is not going to be a quiet graphics card. While I'd like to applaud NVIDIA for being brave enough to make their flagship a dual-slot card, I think the vast majority of the market would have been better served with a larger volume design similar to the RTX 4090. So I'll let that sink in for a minute. Because I thought the exact same thing when I first saw the 2-slot design and the TDP at being 575 watts. This thing should have been a triple slot. It should have been a thick graphics card. Then it would have been better and more reliable. And they wouldn't have had to jump through so many hoops. But I get it. The engineering team did a really good job. With the design is a work of art. But noisy and it's a space heater. We have several custom design reviews of the 5090 coming up, some with massive coolers. Yeah, massive coolers are on the way, inbound, which should end up achieving lower noise levels than the FE. In case you're worried about maintenance, taking oh yeah. So basically, because he didn't have liquid metal when he put it back together, he just used regular thermal paste, like the one that I use in my live build videos, and the temperatures only went up by 2 degrees, which means now, after reassembling it, it's doing 79, 80 degrees. So, okay. PCI Express 5.0, Blackwell is using 5.0. This increases the available PCI bandwidth, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, we will actually look into this because the Tech Power Up, man. Props to Wizard and the team. These guys put out the info. These guys put out the review info that actually matters. Not to downplay other reviewers' content. I know they put a lot of effort into those. I've done benchmarking review videos before, and I know how time-consuming that is. So, but I'm saying that Tech Power Up is kind of like my personal go-to resource to where I want to see things like PCI Express scaling, which we're about to look at, by the way, because I'm actually very curious to know like how this thing performs if you have an older motherboard that doesn't have PCI Gen 5. So they have a separate article. We were actually going to be looking at that next. So, but anyway, let's talk about power consumption. We actually spent a lot of time on power consumption, but the thing is, this thing uses 125 watts more power than the 4090 Founders Edition. All that heat will end up in your room. I like how he's literally talking. It's like, when I read this, it sounds like I'm literally listening to someone talk to me. Like he's talking to his audience. All that heat will end up in your room. It will. I know. I know what it's like to run a 600 watt GPU. I know. Okay, take it from me. I'm the guy that used to run dual Vega 64s in Crossfire. That's dual graphics cards. That was 300 plus 300 because it's 2 graphics cards. That's 600 watts of waste heat coming out of those 2 blower style coolers. I know exactly what 600 watts of waste heat feels like while gaming. It is not pleasant, it is very annoying, and the only time that you would actually enjoy it is in the middle of the winter. Literally right now is the only time where gaming with a 5090 would be acceptable because you don't have to run your heater. You can literally just use the 5090 to heat up your entire room. You could even heat up an entire apartment. You could even heat up most of a house with the 5090 by itself. So, all that heat will end up in your room, no matter the cooler. Which means small gaming caves will heat up during longer gaming sessions. Okay, this is the reason why. As someone who regularly live streams on the weekend, like you guys know that we do live streams and we feature multiple different games. We are going to be doing a live stream this weekend on games. We'll talk about that later in the stream. This is the reason why I must use an energy efficient CPU, because if I'm going to game on and stream for like 5 hours, I do not want to sit there in front of the crowd and turn into a sweaty, nasty mess while on camera. This is the reason why energy efficiency is paramount in this day and age for gaming for extended periods of time. But this is very problematic. This is the biggest disappointment about the 5090, the power consumption. Yes, it's 30% faster, but it uses so much more power that it is not a pleasant experience. What's extremely unexpected is the high idle power draw. So I personally don't think that that's that bad. The only reason why this is probably high power draw relative to other graphics cards is because this graphics card has so many CUDA cores. That's the only reason why. So, overclocking, don't do it. It's not worth it. It's like already so much power. You're pushing the power connector is already kind of finicky enough It's already like suspicious, so it's like don't push it, don't create a fire hazard, like don't even do it. It's already running too close to the 600 watts, like it's not even worth it. Okay, alternatives. There's basically no alternatives, and it's $2,000, and the AIB is a little more. So editor's choice, but it's expensive. So as expected. So yeah, it's so I guess to me, after watching a bunch of video reviews today and reading a bunch of articles, including the Tech Power Up one, my conclusion is it is the fastest GPU. It uses the most electricity of any GPU ever in the consumer market, and the Founders Edition is not quiet. So, and it's too small for how much power the graphics card uses. So that means that if you really want a 5090, you're probably better off getting an AIB. But we will know tomorrow how these AIB cards perform. I expect them to be quieter, but I think the power consumption is basically going to be the same. So I don't think they're going to perform significantly better than the Founders Edition. I could be wrong in that statement, but I don't think, realistically, like the only way these cards, these AIB cards could be better than the Founders Edition in a significant way is if they included more than one power connector. Unfortunately, all these guys put one power connector on their GPUs. I'm very disappointed that no one decided to do a dual power connector, because that would have been way safer. And you could actually overclock them without worrying about the connector melting. But they're all the same, so it basically means that they're all going to perform the exact same as the Founders Edition. The only difference is these cards will run cooler and quieter. They will definitely have better memory temperatures. One of the reasons why I suspect that the Founders Edition has very bad memory temperatures, we're talking like 94 degrees, is because when you look at how it's designed, part of the PCB is like wedged. Well, okay, it's like between the two fans. You can kind of see it here. So I have a feeling that the VRAM that sits parallel to the motherboard gets really hot. And the VRAM that is perpendicular to the motherboard, meaning the ones that are off of the fin stack, they run colder because the fans blow directly over them, if that makes sense. So let's see if I can find a better picture. So, okay, so right here. So this is a good picture. So these memory modules, the memory modules down here and the memory modules up here, these probably run much cooler than these two memory modules here and these four that are up here. And the reason why that is because the fans blow air here and up there, which means there's 10 memory modules that are probably running at like 80, 84 degrees. And the ones that are like away from the fan are probably running really hot, like 90 plus. So it's one of those deals where I think the 94 degrees is the average. It's not like the hottest, meaning there are some memory modules that are probably running hotter or have a higher hotspot temp than the ones on the sides, if that makes sense. So this is probably not the best choice to get this because the memory runs really hot. And you think about it, the reason why it's going to run hot, I just realized another thing. Look at the VRM. The VRM is so close to the RAM. The memory that is next to the VRM does not have the fan. The fan is over here and over there. So I have a feeling that these four memory chips at the top run extremely hot because they're right next to the VRM, and this is such a compact PCB, there is literally no room to expel the heat. They can't spread the heat fast enough, which is the reason why this thing probably runs, the memory runs really hot. So longevity-wise, I question long-term durability of the memory chips on this GPU. So that's the only thing, that's another thing that's concerning about it. The liquid metal's cool, but you know, like, okay, that doesn't really help the DRAM. Like, the VRAM chips are still going to be running really, really hot. And that's why we're seeing the discrepancy there. So let's see, what is everybody saying here? Did I put everybody to sleep talking about this thing for literally... Wow, I can't believe we've been live for 2 hours. I can't believe the stream's already been going that long, and we've only talked about the review of the 5090. I mean, what do you guys think? After seeing the reviews, what's the overall opinion? How's your Godlike? The Godlike is fine. Oh, I updated to the latest BIOS for the Godlike yesterday. Is that floor camera set up? Okay, yeah, it's still set up. Yeah, you want to see the Godlike? There it is. There it is. Dynamic dashboard. I know all about the dynamic dashboard issue. I don't have any problems with it. Mine's working great. I fixed it. And I told people how to fix it. I don't know. There's people that are having some problems with the dynamic dashboard. Godlike is running great. It's on the latest BIOS. I have not done any firmware update for the dynamic dashboard. It's still on the same one that came with the board. You're super disappointed. You're going to buy, but doubtful now. Yeah, for most people, this is going to be a complete skip. I'll be honest, guys. Like, I might actually skip this completely, too. Like, I'm not impressed with the Founders Edition. The memory runs super hot. The GPU's not quiet. You know me. I like my GPUs really quiet. That's the reason why I got the Sapphire Nitro, because it's the quietest XTX. That's the reason why I got the 4090 Founders Edition, because it's a quiet Founders Edition.
I have a 4090, and jumped to that from a 3090. 5090 doesn't seem like a great jump at all.
Yeah, it depends on how long. So there's other things too. I think one of the reviewers, I think Wendell, or somebody, I think it may have been Level 1 Text, somebody put it a really good way. Like, they said that the value proposition, if someone wants to upgrade from a 4090 to a 5090, assuming you have a 4K monitor, because if you don't have a 4K monitor, forget about it. Like, it's not worth it. It's just straight up not worth it. If you're on 1440p, it's not worth it at all. It's not worth the potential headaches. But if you're at 4K, and you're thinking, you're on the fence, should I upgrade? It's super expensive. It's going to be really hard to battle a bunch of scalpers. It's going to be really hard to even get one or even have a chance at getting one. There's the whole connectors thing. You have to have a very high-end power supply. You have to have a very energy-efficient CPU. You have to have a Gen 5 motherboard. I mean, there's so much criteria that is required here to see an actual benefit. And that doesn't even take into account how long you have had the 4090. If you've only had your 4090 for less than 1 year, you probably should not upgrade. If you've had your 4090 for almost 2 years or more, like if you've had a 4090 since the launch of the 4090, and you're also on a 4K monitor, then maybe it makes sense to consider it, because I totally understand what that's like. But it's just be aware of the additional complexity that comes with this graphics card. This graphics card is more power demanding, so you better have a good power supply. This graphics card uses way more electricity. It's going to generate way more heat. You have to have good airflow in your case. Otherwise, you're going to mess things up, induce thermal throttling, potentially cause your CPU to perform worse. So all kinds of challenges here that you need to be aware of if you want to go to a 5090. It is not that easy. You cannot just be like, oh, take out the 4090, put in the 5090. It's yeah, you can, but that assumes that you already have hit all these check boxes. So yeah, this will definitely heat up the CPU. So here's the other thing too. If you're like me, so for example, I have with me here a 13900/14900K. This thing is cooled with a Noctua NHD14 air cooler. So we have an air cooler cooling a 253 watt CPU. This thing is already touching 100 degrees in Monster Hunter Wilds, as you guys saw in the live stream. So this thing hits 100 degrees while gaming in Monster Hunter Wilds. Now, if I put a 5090 in the same computer with this CPU, which is already being cooled by an air cooler, what do you think is going to happen to the Intel CPU? That is literally at potential risk of dying due to the previous voltage issues. First of all, this thing was being killed by voltage. Now it can be killed by temperature because it has an air cooler on it. Wonderful. Wonderful. It's like, yeah, I've just introduced a whole nother way to kill my 13900/14900K CPU. Yes, put the 5090 in the computer with your Intel i9, and then 2 months later, your Intel i9 is dead or degraded and having problems. Wonderful. That's such a wonderful thing to do. It's the big brain play. You know what I'm saying? Like, stick this in with an i9 so you can kill the i9 in 2 months. Great. Fantastic. For all the people out there using air coolers with their i9s. The air cooler prevented the voltage death, but it can't prevent the thermal death. So, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, the 9800 XT is totally fine. This isn't going to be a problem. You stick a 5090 in with a 9800 XT, it don't care. Like, this thing doesn't even heat up, guys. Like, this thing doesn't generate enough heat. This thing by itself doesn't generate enough heat. A Noctua D15 will handle this CPU, and then all the additional waste heat from the 5090, the Noctua can also handle that. So it's not a big deal. If you're on X3D, who cares? Like, you can literally go to a 5090 and you don't have to worry. It's all the people out there that are on the Intel stuff. Like, and I'm talking like i9. If you're on i9s, you are probably going to have some problems with thermal throttling. Even if you're on a liquid cooler. You know why? Because guess what? The liquid cooler is going to suck in all the heat from the GPU, which will overwhelm the radiator faster than normal. The radiator is designed to dissipate the CPU's heat. Now you add the GPU's heat, and now you've overwhelmed your AIO. Congratulations, you've literally induced thermal throttling on your CPU. Because your CPU uses way too much electricity to begin with. So, you know, like, okay, it's like, yeah, let's not blame the real culprit here, the 5090 with its massive 600 watts. Let's shift the blame to the Intel i9, as if Intel wasn't blamed enough for things last year. Just downgrade to an i5 or an i7 with an Octa. Oh yeah. Oh, that sounds like a really good idea. Yes. Let's bottleneck ourselves. Let's CPU bottleneck. Yes. Let's CPU bottleneck. Let's downgrade the CPU so we can induce CPU bottlenecks and increase shader compilation times. So we can nerf the 5090 so it doesn't pull as much power because it runs into a CPU bottleneck. Like, yeah, that's a that's a really interesting suggestion. I did not think of that. That's very original. Yeah, downgrade to an i5. Yes, yes, downgrade to an i5. Yeah, that'll fix all the problems. Yes, downgrade. Oh man, yeah, no, no. Let's not upgrade to a more energy efficient, newer CPU. Let's downgrade to a weaker CPU. Oh man, that's probably the most hilarious suggestion I've heard all week. Yes, yes, you're gonna pair because you're gonna pair a $2,000 GPU with an i5. And you might as well pair it up with a 1080p 60 hertz monitor while you're at it. Install a dedicated split system. Okay, yeah. Remodel your house while you're at it. Yeah, yeah. Run an entire new HVAC air duct dedicated right in front of the desktop as an intake. Okay, that's actually a good segue though to move to the scaling. So let's look at PCIe Express scaling. Someone just mentioned some people buy 4090 to pair with yeah, they're gonna be like sub 60 FPS at 1080p with that CPU because of all the driver overhead. The 5090 will literally cause the 3700K to have a heart attack. Um, okay, let's look at the. Okay, so this is actually a pretty interesting article. So this is a good article actually. You don't see content like this that much. So props to Tech Power Up once again for like showcasing the stuff that actually matters here. So PCIe 5 unlocks the full potential. So the question is, how much do you lose? So the test system, of course, is going to be a 9800X3D with an X870E carbon Wi-Fi and a thermal take 6200. I've never seen a 6200 gig. The hilarious thing is the amount of system RAM equals the amount of VRAM. So this should literally be at 48 or 64, not 32. And then a 280 millimeter AIO. I mean, that's okay. That's basically like a Noctua D15. 4 terabyte NVMe. Seasonic 1000 watt. That power supply is a little underpowered for this, but because this is a 9800X3D, this 1000 watt is okay. Okay, so here, yeah, this is it. So this is the setup. I think that's not the correct GPU, but that is the setup. And here we go. These are all the GPUs that were tested, so let's look at some of these results. Alan Wake 2. Okay. Once again, well, we can just kind of like stare and compare. So, 1080p, it lost 2 frames going to Gen 4, or lane sharing. And then we got 1440p, same, like 1 FPS. 4K, like not even 1 full FPS. However, here's the thing. If the motherboard is so old that it's like, for example, if it's a what's an example? Oh, if someone's on Sandy Bridge, if someone is on Sandy Bridge, and they're also on a FX 8350, if someone is on an AMD FX 8350 or a Intel i5 or i7 Sandy Bridge, they will be getting the orange bar, except it won't even be this good. It'll probably be worse than the purple bar because they'll be so CPU bound. But the reason why I'm pointing this out is because the FX 8350 only supported PCIe Gen 2. Same deal with Intel's Sandy Bridge. Those are PCIe Gen 2, which means they can only do Gen 2 speed. But this is not the same performance because this is the performance of a 9800X3D when the bandwidth is restricted to Gen 2 speeds for this orange bar. So you can see, yeah, there is a reduction in performance. And it looks like it is most pronounced at, surprisingly, it is most pronounced at 1080p. So we're doing, yeah, you drop from 199 to 172, or drop from 203 to 198. Here, it's like 2 FPS drop or 5 FPS drop. And then at 4K, it's barely anything. So the good news is that if you're gaming at 4K with the 5090 and you have to do lane sharing on a Gen 5 slot, you're not really losing anything. It's negligible. But these lower resolutions, it is more pronounced. For example, at 1080p, the green bar is the full 16 lanes. The blue bar is lane sharing on a Z890, or not, a Z790, for example. All the Intel Z790 motherboards feature lane sharing between the GPU and the primary Gen 5 SSD slot. So there you lose 2 FPS. Now, okay, it's 2 frames per second and it's 1080p, so it's more of like an academic result. It's not a realistic result, but it is something worth looking into, or something to be aware of. Let's look at let me see. Well, let's look through some of these games. Baldur's Gate 3. Their site's going kind of slow. You wonder if Gen 5 to Gen 4 also affects the 1% lows. It can, but typically I don't think it does. In fact, do they do... Okay, they do minimum. Unless their website went down. It's not really loading. The point is, you're not really going to notice the drop in performance over PCIe bandwidth if you're at 4K. It is the least pronounced the higher the resolution. And that is actually quite surprising. But it makes sense because when you think about it, the PCIe comes into play when the GPU has to communicate with the CPU. And when the game is more CPU demanding, that typically happens at lower resolutions. So, case in point, at 1080p, you're closer to a CPU-bound scenario than at 4K. So there's more back and forth signaling. There's more PCIe traffic, so to speak, between the graphics card and the CPU, because the graphics card is completing the frame rendering so much faster at 1080p versus 4K. Then it's basically telling the CPU, I need more, I need more. So it's the CPUs have to do more. There's more back and forth communication over the PCIe interface. And that is the reason why the lower resolution, you see a more pronounced reduction in performance versus the higher resolutions. Because if we go up to 4K, see, it's like, look at this. Like the difference between Gen 5 X16 at 120 frames versus Gen 4 X16 or lane sharing Gen 5 is 1 FPS at 4K. At 1440p, this is 170, it's like 2 FPS. And then at 1080p, 194 to 192. So it's like 2.5. So it's almost 3 FPS. So you can see it's becoming more pronounced. And then you go down to older generations where it's even more bandwidth restricted. And you can see here's something very interesting. So check this out. So the 5090, when restricted to Gen 2, meaning Sandy Bridge or AMD FX 8350, is losing to a 4090 because this 4090 is typical PCIe Gen 4 X16. It's beating the 5090 because of the bandwidth restriction. Now, realistically, this doesn't show you the performance of a Sandy Bridge or a Bulldozer CPU because this is a 9800X3D, but it goes to show that PCI bandwidth does manifest, and this is the minimum. This is the all games minimum FPS. It manifests in minimum FPS. So if you want the highest performance and the smoothest latency, lowest latency, and the best minimums, you definitely want to be on a Gen 5 capable platform like a 9800X3D. But remember, you also need the motherboard to support Gen 5 speeds if you truly want to experience the green bar. So now we're going to transition into Paint. We're going to list all of the platforms that support full Gen 5 bandwidth. Okay, so we talked about this, but because this is kind of like a review for those who did not watch the live stream where we already covered this, basically the following motherboard chipsets will give you the green bar: X870E, X870, X670E. Actually, let's do it this way. Let's do X870E, X670E, X870, B650E. These will guarantee the Gen 5 X16 slot. They guarantee it for the AMD platform. So we should designate this is AM5. This is on AM5. And then for the Intel platforms, LGA 1851. So LGA 1851, there is Z890. That one also guarantees the full Gen 5 bandwidth. Basically, if you are on an Intel Core Ultra CPU, or any of the Ryzen 9000 or Ryzen 7000, provided you have the following motherboards, or a motherboard that has one of these, you have that. And then LGA 1700. So this is Intel's older socket. So this one, Z8 or Z790, Z690. However, this one, there's an asterisk. This one will be mandatory lane sharing on Z790 if you use the top M.2 slot. So the only way to avoid the lane sharing, because the Z790 is plagued with lane sharing. This is like the worst platform because of all the lane sharing. It is worse. Like Z690 is superior because it had no lane sharing compared to Z790. So the older, like the Alder Lake motherboards, these are the motherboards that were meant to go with 12 gen Intel. They actually were better in the sense that you didn't have to think about whether you're going to lose your GPU lanes if you like install all your SSDs, for example, on Z690. That was never a problem. Z790, it is always a problem. Every single Z790 features mandatory lane sharing for the top Gen 5 slot, because that is a Gen 5 SSD slot. And the way that they do that is they steal lanes from the graphics card. So unless you're okay, like leaving your thick heatsink SSD slot empty the whole time you use the motherboard, which is kind of a feels bad because you basically wasted money. You can't use that SSD slot. That's the only way to avoid lane sharing on the Z790. So that's basically it. These are the platforms. All of these platforms. Oh, I guess the last one, TRX 50, which is Threadripper. This one, I forgot what the LG is. Basically, we don't need to mention them. Threadripper has like so much Gen 5 bandwidth, it's kind of a joke. So, but yeah, these are for consumer desktops. So basically, you got AM5, There's 4 different choices, and then you have Intel with the new Intel Ultra Core. That's probably the one that I recommend personally if you're going with Intel. And then there's the old Intel stuff, which is really not that impressive, to be honest. And it had all the V voltage degrade problems and all that stuff, and its high power consumption. So this would be like first choice, second choice, and this is like no. So as far as I'm concerned, for someone who's looking to build like a 5090 computer. We just looked at that. We just showed the charts. You lose more. Yeah, TRX 50 is Threadripper. You lose more the lower resolution. So realistically, guys, it's not a big deal. Provided you're gaming at 4K. If you're gaming at 4K, it's not a problem. It's like less than 1%. But if you're gaming at 1440p or 1080p, it is more pronounced, especially the minimum frame rates. So these are the platforms that enable the full Gen 5 X16 bandwidth. Oh, I saw the comment earlier about Ninja Gaiden. Yeah, we're going to talk about that now. That we're going to transition to talking about the Xbox Developers Direct. That was like the best shadow drop of the year. Like legit. That came out of nowhere, man. I guess we're done talking about 50 series because Super Googly got the ball rolling with the gaming discussion. We're about to transition to talking about Microsoft Xbox Developer Direct. It was awesome. Today's Developer Direct session from Microsoft was amazing. They showed off some of the most amazing games. I actually like how Microsoft, like the way Xbox dedicated the time to like 4 specific developers and their upcoming games. It was good. There was some crazy stuff. They showed off Clair Obscure Expedition 33. Looks so good. And that one is probably the most... Well, I'm super hyped for Ninja Gaiden 4 from Platinum Games. But, man, I think we're gonna start diving into that now. So, let me just play this here. Let's switch back over to this.
The abandoned Tokyo continues its struggle against chaos to this day.
This was shown off today. Meanwhile, okay, so today there was all these 40... Oh, no, 40. I was about to say 4090 Ti. All these 5090 reviews. Meanwhile, Microsoft was shadow dropping all the good stuff with the Xbox Developer Direct. This is true action. It's finally back. We only had to wait, like, what, 12 years? 13 years? 12, 13 years, somewhere around there. Ninja Gaiden 3 was like 2012. And then there was Ninja Gaiden 3 Razor's Edge on the Wii U at the end of 2012. So this is already like 12... Yeah, 13 years? 13 years? It's been 13 years since the Ninja Gaiden games? Not only did they show this... Oh, the Azuna drop! You love to see it. The Azuna drop. Oh, yes. Obliteration techniques. Oh, he's got the obliteration techniques. And the ultimate techniques are back. Hold up. What is this? This guy right here, this new guy. The new guy Man, what is this? This is some like Nero from DMC4 or something? Like, what's going on here? The fact that this is Ninja Gaiden 4, when I saw this new guy, when I saw the new guy for Ninja Gaiden 4, the new protagonist, and I'm like, man, there's gonna be Ryu Hayabusa in here. And then sure enough, he shows up in the trailer. As soon as I saw this scene where they face off in the cutscene, like, as soon as I saw this, hold up. When I saw this, I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. I was like, time out, time out, time out, hold up, time out. Hold up. This is Ninja Gaiden 4? And they're introducing a new protagonist? Oh, what other action game that was from Capcom back in the PS3 days and 360 was a number 4 and it introduced a new protagonist that was edgy? Maybe Devil May Cry 4 with the introduction of Nero as the new main protagonist. DMC4 introduced Nero as the new guy. And then Dante was in the game, of course. So I have a feeling Ninja Gaiden 4 is being inspired in some roundabout way by, at least like story flow wise, is kind of like Devil May Cry 4. So you got a new protagonist, this new guy from the Raven clan, and then Hayabusa's going to show up. So you're probably going to get to play as both of them for parts of the story. And then there's probably going to be the co-op mode. I hope they have the mission mode from Ninja Gaiden 2 and 3, or Ninja Gaiden Sigma 2 and Ninja Gaiden 3, Razor's Edge. Because, man, the mission mode, playing with friends on co-op on PSN back in the day, was so good. I really, really hope that they have mission mode and the co-op is in here. Because this was so good. See, a lot of people were like, well, how are you able to handle, like, Elden Ring and the Souls games? Well, the only reason why those games were never that hard for me is because growing up as a kid, playing Ninja Gaiden Black on the original Xbox and the Xbox 360. Well, I didn't have an Xbox 360, but my friend had an Xbox 360, so I would play it at his house. Growing up, playing Ninja Gaiden 1 and 2 on the Xbox/Xbox 360. And then later on, when I got a PS3, I got to play Ninja Gaiden Sigma and Ninja Gaiden Sigma 2. Like, and then eventually Ninja Gaiden 3 Razor's Edge. Like, being introduced to those games is probably the reason why, like, Elden Ring, Dark Souls, you know, like, the modern action, like, Black Myth Wukong isn't really impossible for me to play because I was, like, I adapted to Ninja Gaiden back in the day and Devil May Cry. And that's the reason why these modern games like Black Myth Wukong don't really seem that hard to me. Because, man, you want to play a hard, punishing action game? This is the game. This is literally the game to play. Like, if you want to be killed by the AI over and over and over again on boss fights, especially on the higher difficulty level, Ninja Gaiden. Ninja Gaiden makes Elden Ring look like it is casual. Ninja Gaiden, especially on the higher difficulty levels. Because I remember all these people complaining, oh, Elden Ring is too hard. They need to make it more accessible to a wider audience. And I'm sitting here like, man, these people complaining and whining, these guys never played Ninja Gaiden back in the day. They don't have any idea what it's like to play a real difficult action game. Because this is the real deal. This game, the enemies don't stand there and they don't wait. You got like 6 enemies surrounding you. And, like, one of them is trying to, like, attack you while the others just stand there in the bag and, like, menacingly looking and not doing anything. No, in Ninja Gaiden, you know what? All of them charge and attack you. All of them come after you at the same time. Constantly. All of them attack. Like, Phantasy Star Online New Genesis. Go. Attack. Go. Attack. Like, the AI's programming is literally attack. Attack, super aggro, attack the player, just attack, who cares? Who cares if they dodge? Just keep attacking. Just keep attacking. It is so aggro. It is so aggro. Play on Master Ninja. Oh, man. Probably one of the greatest accomplishments of my entire gaming career was completing Ninja Gaiden 2 Master Ninja back in the day. So, speaking of Ninja Gaiden 2, the other huge thing that was announced today, that's actually available today, oh my god, is this. Available now. Today. Immediately. Unreal Engine 5. It has come back from the depths of time. Reborn again. Using Unreal Engine 5. A masterpiece of the action game genre. Oh, look at it, it's back. Man, and all that UE5 glory. The ultimate ninja. Naruto, better watch out.
My path leads through the land of the dead.
His path leads through the land of the dead.
And thus the sun sets on the Dragon Ninja bloodline.
Genshin,
Yeah.
back to hell.
All paths before me are cruel and arduous. Our time has come.
This is the game. This is the game. This literally came out of nowhere. I was watching 5090 reviews today, and then all of a sudden in my recommended feed, it was like Xbox Developers Direct live stream, and then there was like some other recommended videos, and then one of them was Ninja Gaiden 4. And I was like, wait, what? Ninja Gaiden 4? Is this some fake news? I click on it, Ninja Gaiden 4 trailer, the new guy, coming this fall, 2025, and then all of a sudden, Ninja Gaiden 2 Black. I was like, wait, is this some fan-made thing? Is this like fake? What is this? And it's like straight up Team Ninja available now today, and I'm like, wait, what? What happened? Like, what happened to the 5090? It's like I automatically got transported into an alternate reality where there was like no 5090 news and everything was like all like Xbox. It was weird. I was like, wait, Ninja Gaiden 2 Black is a real game? Like, what? It's Unreal Engine 5? This came out of nowhere. It was such a surprise. This was such a shock to me. Like, it was crazy. This was an instant buy. Like, I already have this game ready to go. So for the gaming tomorrow on stream, we are going to be streaming. Originally, I was going to be streaming, and we may look at it depending on time, but probably not. We'll try to cover a couple of games, as many games as possible, but it depends on how sidetracked I get, because you know how these streams tend to go on the weekend. If you've ever watched the live streams on the weekend, they're so unorganized compared to Tech Thursdays. But originally, I was going to live stream on... Well, we are still going to live stream on one of these. The Intel Arc B580. So the Intel Arc B580 limited edition from Intel. So I am going to showcase various games with the Intel Arc graphics card. So the new graphics card from Intel, their Battle Mage architecture in discrete form. So that is going to be on tomorrow's live stream. So if you want to stop by and discuss 5090 AIB cards, because tomorrow the AIB reviews will be out, you can hang out with me on stream. We will be talking about 5090 AIB cards, which one to get, which one would I get personally. But we're also going to be gaming, and originally I was going to play, games like Dragon's Dogma and Dynasty Warriors Origins, and maybe Black Myth Wukong and Silent Hill, and Final Fantasy VII Rebirth on PC. But because of Ninja Gaiden Black, or Ninja Gaiden 2 Black, this game was such a shock that I'm like, okay, nope. This is the game that we're going to live stream using the ARC B580. So if you want to see some insane action game, Ninja Gaiden Black, you want to see a game that makes Elden Ring look like it's for casuals, come by and watch me on the playthrough of Ninja Gaiden 2 Black on the Intel ARC B580. So, and we will be we will be using the 4K resolution, but I highly doubt that the B580 is not designed to be used for 4K gaming. That's not its intended resolution. It's really intended for 1080p and possibly 1440p. So if I have to leverage XESS or FSR, performance mode or balanced mode or whatever, I will definitely be doing that in like every single game, because I don't expect it to do 4K unless the game is like really old. But there's another game, somebody mentioned the first Berserker, Kazan. First Berserker Kazan demo is also available. And that's a modern action game based off of the DNF series. So that one is from a Korean developer. So we will probably showcase the first Berserker with the Intel Arc GPU, and we will also be showcasing Ninja Gaiden 2 Black. But just know that the vast majority of that gaming livestream will be dedicated to Ninja Gaiden 2 Black, because this game is so good. I can't wait to play this classic action game, brutally challenging action game on Unreal Engine 5. In fact, this game features ray tracing. Ray tracing. So we will test this game. It is going to be so much fun. So tomorrow we'll be discussing the AIB cards, RTX 5090 AIB, and then we'll also be like live streaming a bunch of random games, but most of it's going to be Ninja Gaiden. But I couldn't believe it. I could not believe that Ninja Gaiden 2 Black just like shadow drop. This is literally the like shadow drop of the year, like by far. No, like out of nowhere. I was completely blindsided. Ninja Gaiden 2 Black available now. Like you can get it now. It's like, wait, what? It's not even no announcement ahead of time. Just nope. You can download it today. It's there. Okay. And in fact, if you have Game Pass, I'm not 100% sure on this. I think it's available on Game Pass. Ninja Gaiden 2 Black. Oh, it's on Game Pass? Yeah, so it is. So yeah. Excellent game. If you never played Ninja Gaiden, man, this game, I'm telling you right now, this game makes Black Myth Wukong look like easy mode. Easy mode compared to this game. This is the real action game. This is a classic. Because this game also has like ridiculously difficult challenge levels and like things like 60. I remember 60 Fiend Challenge, Test of Valor modes. Man, I hope they have like I hope they carry over some of the stuff that was in Ninja Gaiden Sigma 2, like the mission mode and the other playable characters. Like I hope Momiji, Ayane, and Rachel are playable. And I hope they have their story missions like they did in Ninja Gaiden Sigma 2, because man, this is gonna be so good. This game is just so good. You missed the early part. Can someone remind me the best way possible to get RTX 5090? January 30th in the US. Don't camp out at Best Buy, because I don't think it's guaranteed. So, okay, we'll talk about strategies to buy one. I guess that's the last thing we'll do. Let's actually transition over to that. So, yeah, then we'll end the stream. Actually, hold on. Oh, before we do that, while we're on the topic of gaming, I guess the easiest thing to tell you on that, don't camp out at a Best Buy, because none of the Best Buy stores are guaranteed to have them in the store on launch day. The best way to buy the Founders Edition, if you truly want the Founders Edition, although it's probably not the best one, you should at least wait and see what reviewers say about the AIB cards tomorrow. But the Founders Edition will be available online order with store pickup. So, meaning, I don't know if they're going to actually allow you to ship it to an address. Like, the way they've done GPU launches since the Super Series, and I think they did this with the 40 Series, although I don't remember exactly, you have to order it on the website. You cannot go into the store and place the order in the store. They won't let you do that. So you have to buy it online, and then you have to select a store for store pickup. Now, they may, depending on where you are in the US, they might allow shipping to an address, but they don't do that for every place. Meaning, they force you to go into the store because you know how it is. Like, they want people to come into the store. The whole idea is you see something in the store and you decide to buy that in addition to the thing that you came to get. So you have to purchase it online, and then you have to go into the store to pick it up. So you choose a store. So the strategy for buying a 5090 Founders Edition, the strategy that I would use, which I will probably attempt to use, and I don't expect to get one, but you want to have all of your credit card info, all your account info in the website already ready to go. You want to have the product page in the browser ready to go. And you want to just try to buy it like right in the morning when it goes live, and that's it. It's that simple. You want to be able to get through the checkout as fast as possible. The main thing is get through the checkout as fast as possible, which means you need to have your credit card info all in the website. Everything needs to be ready. The ship to or the store pickup, all that stuff needs to be in the website ready to go. Otherwise, if you're trying to enter that info while it's in the cart, chances are you're going to lose it. It's going to get sold out while you're trying to enter in your info. So that's the main strategy. You just got to have everything on the website ready to go. But no, there's no camping outside Best Buy. For Best Buy specifically, yes. You do not camp outside of Best Buy. You have to use the website. It's really lame. It's very lame. Because you're going to go right up against all the scalpers. Okay, so this is the other big game that was shown off. And I've talked about this game before. This game is from I can't believe this is an indie studio. Sandfall Interactive. I guess Kepler is the publisher and Sandfall Interactive is the developer. This is literally their first game.
Been having nightmares.
Hold on, I don't want to get demonetized. I think, hold on, what I'll do is I will turn on the, let's install this. This game, Claire Obscure Expedition 33, I only became aware of this game late last year, but this automatically went to like top most anticipated list. My short list of games for 2025, this game was automatically on the list, like from day one. As soon as I first saw this game, I was like, yeah, this is automatically on the list. So this is like a skill expression based, they're calling it a reactive turn-based RPG, which is really interesting. I can tell they're influenced by a lot of games like the Persona series, the Final Fantasy series, but if you watch the Developer Direct segment from the Xbox Developer Direct from today, if you go back and watch that, the part that they dedicated to this studio, I couldn't believe that this was their first game. Like, I was like, man, either these people are like really experienced making video games, or they're like super talented, because I can't believe that this is their very first game. Like, it doesn't look like a first game for an indie dev. It looks way too good for an indie dev game. Not to like downplay indie developers, but you also look at the cast, the voice actor cast for this game, and it's like they got really good voice actors in here. So I was like, man, this is like super high quality. This is like triple A game from an indie developer. So this one is definitely like a must play. And this one has the release date too. It's coming out in April. So for me, Ninja Gaiden 4, Ninja Gaiden 2 Black, and Clair Obscure Expedition 33 are the games that got my attention. Doom, I don't really care. I'm not into that game. I never actually played a single Doom game ever. It looks cool. It doesn't appeal to me. So it is what it is. And then the other game that they showed off, the one that was based off of like Louisiana folklore, also looked interesting. It looked like it had some interesting action. But no, like Expedition 33, this is like right up my alley in terms of like the type of games that I like. So this one and the Ninja Gaiden games, for sure. If you can get a 4090, you would get it. Why would you get one now, though? The problem is you can't get one. So, I mean, I guess you can't get one. I personally wouldn't get a 4090 now. You're buying used, and it's too expensive on the used market. So it's not worth it. Gigabyte water block. If you're experienced with liquid cooling, then you can go that route, but honestly, the liquid cooled versions are going to be harder to resell, as someone already said, and it's not that they could be harder to resell, they are harder to resell. So they don't retain their resale value. It assumes that the user or the owner knows how to maintain a liquid cooled system, a full like custom loop, for example. So they're way more. You're just adding way more complexity. So I personally will not go with a liquid cooled variant. That's just me. Like I would think that there's a specific use case and a very specific buyer within an already pretty much a niche group to begin with, not counting the AI crowd that would actually buy a 5090. So it's like within that niche, you have another niche within the niche. And that niche is the one that would want the liquid cooled variant. So I don't expect any liquid cooled variants to be available at launch. Those will all come later. So the only AIB choices at launch will be the air cooled variants from the typical partners. And then of course the Founders Edition. But everything I've heard is that the supply is going to be very, very low at launch. So the chances of getting one are slim to none. Radiator will still blow super hot air. 5080 AIBs are stupid expensive. Yeah, well, see, okay, we haven't talked about 5080. We'll hear about 5080 next week. But what I can tell you is 5080 is probably going to be the gamer's card. Like, that's the one that most gamers are actually going to want. Here's the thing. RTX 5090. High or too much power consumption. Regardless of the performance, it's too much power consumption. Number one. The runs too close to the rated power limit of the Molex PCIe connector. Basically, the 12 volt X2. What is it? What is that cable? 12 volt 2X6. That stupid power connector. Like, this thing runs too close to the limit of 600 watts. So this does not make me feel comfortable. This does not inspire confidence in the product at all. Um, hot, humid mess. The room will be a hot, humid mess after gaming for like 1 hour. It just takes 1 hour. It's already going to be a pain to deal with. So that's the 5090. That's what I keep thinking of when I think of the 5090 in my mind. So the 5080, by comparison, 5080 has overclocking headroom. It has a lot of overclocking headroom because its TDP is 360 watts, which means the AIBs can push the power limit higher beyond stock with a factory overclock, for example, and kind of justify their increased price over MSRP. That's why. That's the reason why you're seeing the prices the way they are. So, it's like 360 watt total board power, which is actually not that bad, considering the 4080 was what, 320 or 320, 350, somewhere around there. So it's not that bad. So it's much easier to cool, won't heat up the room. Well, okay, as much, okay, it's still like 360 watts is still going to generate a lot of heat. It'll heat up the room. It just won't heat up the room as fast. There. So, that is, that's what I'm thinking. It just doesn't perform as well. It's just weaker. Oh, also, FE card is quiet. Yeah, that's the other thing too. The FE card on the 5080 will be quiet because it's more than enough to handle the 360 watt TBP. So this one is not quiet. The FE is not quiet on the 5090. You will hear it. 40 dBA is not quiet. You don't believe me? Then go ahead and buy it, and then you'll see what I'm talking about. I mean, I'm literally someone who has access, who has used a lot of, like, NVIDIA Founders Edition cards in the past. So I'm speaking from experience here. We don't know. We don't know. So, realistically, like, these cards will launch together. I think the reviews for 5080 will be not as good as 5090. But from a everyday usability standpoint, I think the 5080 is much easier to handle. It is not hot and loud. It has a good cooler if you're talking about the FE model. It has overclocking headroom if you go with an AIB model. So, I mean, it's just much more well-behaved is the phrase that I'll use. 5070 Ti is a much better option. 5070 Ti could end up being the best option. The only problem with the 5070 Ti, guess what? No Founders Edition. So if you really like the Founders Edition, you cannot buy the 5070 Ti. The 5070 Ti has no Founders Edition. The Founders Edition, RTX 50 series FE, is only available for the following: RTX 5090, RTX 5080, RTX 5070. There is no 5070 Ti Founders Edition. So that's the only, yeah, that's like the, well, it still might be a good choice if you don't care about the Founders Edition, I guess. $5070, we don't know. There's not enough info on it. Oh, this hurts the eye. Five. There. There, just here, I'll just, five. There. I don't know of anyone that can get a good deal on the 4090. The problem with 4090 is it's holding the resale value because too many people still want one. Especially after the reviews of the 5090. The thing is, too many people, like, the problem with 5090 is I feel like a lot of enthusiasts who understand how to, like, what it's like having a high-end computer, like a really high-end computer, they don't like the 5090's power consumption. So they're going to avoid it because of the power consumption. So all the people that actually are going to buy one are probably people that have never used a Vega 64. Well, I mean, the Vega 64 doesn't even get anywhere close to the power consumption of a 5090. So realistically, if you're someone who has never had a 3090 Ti, you have no idea what you're getting yourself into getting something like a 5090. It is completely different. It is nothing like a 4090. 3090 Ti and 5090 are similar. They are not fun. They're not fun to maintain. Let's put it another way. Let's use a pet analogy. A pet analogy. The 5090 and the 3090 Ti it's like having a dog that's a very needy dog. Like, the dog needs your attention. You have to give it attention, otherwise it's going to start, like, destroying things in the house, or it's going to go outside and get lost, start digging holes by the fence and all kinds of stuff. You know what I'm saying? 5090 and 3090 Ti are that type of pet. Like, they're very needy. You have to make sure that the connector's not melting. You have to make sure that the airflow is superb, that the CPU's not dying to heat exhaustion. Like, it just adds, the power supply is not caked in dust, so it doesn't blow up and catch on fire. Or that the power supply can actually handle the transient loads and doesn't turn off the computer while gaming intermittently. I mean, there's so many things that people are just in for a rude awakening if they're truly going to buy a 5090 and they have no idea what it's like maintaining a high maintenance GPU. Meanwhile, 4090, like, if you're going to 5090 from 4090, 4090 was a joke. 4090 was like a pet cat. You don't do anything. You don't have to walk it. You don't have to, like, check on it. You don't have to do anything. Like, it's almost like having a fish for a pet. Well, okay, we're not gonna go like aquarium stuff. No, 4090 is like a cat, very low maintenance. 5090 is like having a dog. So for those of you that have had a cat or a dog as a pet, or you currently have a dog as a pet or a cat, especially if it's a needy dog, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you've had a dog, 5090 is gonna be like having a pet dog. .4090 is more like a dog and 5090 is some exotic animal. No, 4090 is really not that hard to take care of. It's very low maintenance. So, That's the way I look at it. 4090. I mean, I'm someone who has had the 4090 with a Threadripper system. So I didn't always have the 4090 with the Threadripper. It was originally in the ASRock desktop, and then it got moved a couple of times for videos. And then I eventually moved it into Threadripper, and it's been in Threadripper ever since. And it's probably going to stay in the Threadripper computer indefinitely, because there's no reason for me to upgrade. So, the 4090... My 4090 is just going to sit in the Threadripper. It's just going to sit there and relax. Low maintenance, don't have to do anything. The Threadripper is on an air cooler. So it's like, man, it's easy. It's easy mode. In fact, I'll show you guys. Let me see if I can find it. I should probably do like a... NVMe. I think it's this video. I think I did a video where I show Threadripper like for an NVMe add-in card. Let me see. What was the name of that video? I guess it's something like yeah. Here it is. Okay, so this is the video. So for those of you that are curious, like, oh wait, no, this doesn't have the 4090 though. This has the XTX. Hold on, where's the one that has the... Oh, it was the USB 4 card. That's right. Yes, this one.
Hey YouTube, today we're gonna...
Okay, yeah, this video. Okay, so... Unboxing. Basically, I'm adding Thunderbolt 4 / USB 4 to my Threadripper computer via the Asus add-in card.
You can see...
So, but the thing that I want to showcase here is the way this computer is set up. Hold on. Right here. There we go. Okay, so this is my Threadripper computer. It's rarely ever shown on stream. So, you can see here is the 4090 Founders Edition. Triple slot behemoth. And then above it is the Noctua air cooler on top of the Threadripper. So this is a full air-cooled Threadripper system. We got air cooling on Threadripper. We got air cooling on 4090. We also have an AMD Radeon Pro W7500. This is a professional AMD workstation graphics card. And then wedged between that and my NVMe card down here is the USB 4 Thunderbolt card from Asus. So that one's down there in the X4 slot. So you can see this computer is literally fully loaded. We have, I think, 7 or 8 M.2 SSDs in this computer. And I think I have like 2 hard drives for archiving old video footage, and then I've got I think I got like some SATA SSDs, like 2 SATA SSDs or something like that. Basically, this PC is like the main workstation for like all of the YouTube, like video editing, all that kind of stuff. Sometimes I can do the editing on this computer. In fact, more often than not, I end up editing the videos on this computer recently. But Threadripper can do a lot of that. So, obviously. But you guys can see, this is fully air-cooled, using a Noctua air cooler. And notice that the airflow is from down to up. Basically, this is a chimney design. So the 4090 has the flow through. It pushes air up. The Threadripper also pushes air up and out of the case at the top. It's basically... The way I built my Threadripper is like a hybrid between the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X. So the Xbox Series X, for those that don't know, it uses a chimney design exhaust. And that's exactly how this Threadripper is set up. It exhausts all the heat out the top. And some of the heat will go out the back exhaust fan, and then the intake fans are like the PlayStation 5, where they push the air in from the side. And it flows in from the front. The Threadripper air cooler will push it out the top, but then the back fan will pull some of it out. So the 4090, it has a flow through on the front fan. So that air typically goes straight up and then out. Or some of it gets sucked into the Noctua fan, because you can see the Noctua fan is literally facing directly on the back of the 4090. So the Noctua air cooler is so good that it actually helps cool the back of the 4090. It pulls the air off of the back, meaning if this was a 3090, you know the 3090 has memory chips on the back. This Threadripper air cooler will handle pulling heat off the back of the 3090. So I would not have problems with the VRAM on that GPU failing over time. So that is the reason why I have it set up that way. It is designed to handle any sort of scenario regardless of GPU. But yeah, for me, Threadripper is going to stay the way it is. I'm not taking the 4090 out. It's going to stay right there. There's no reason. Like, if I do end up getting a 5090, the 5090 will not go in the Threadripper. It will go in probably this computer that we're streaming on right now with the Godlike. And the 9950X, or soon to be the 9950X 3D. Astral, you saw some German video that said the 5090 Astral will be 2,899 euros. What? Man, that's a lot. That's a lot. That's very expensive. Is that true? Oh, you saw a German video? Asus tax. Wow. The Threadripper CPU is a 7960X, 24 core, 48 thread. Because that one has the highest boost frequency. And it's the only one that I can use with the GPU without needing a bigger GPU. Because 48 cores, 48 gigs of VRAM. Oh, did I say 48 cores? I meant 24 cores, 24 gigs of VRAM. If the 5090 is hot compared to how messed up 3080 Ti was, AIB will be sold much more expensive. Yeah, I don't know. I expect the AIBs, so the performance is going to be basically very similar. Where they'll do better is, so let's look at the Astral for example. So the Astral from Asus. The dumbest thing about this, I really like the look of this card, but I don't like that it only has 2 fingers. I really think Asus is making a terrible decision to not put a 3rd finger here to prevent sag. Now, obviously, even if this had 3 fingers, I would still use an anti-sag bracket to support it, because it's like, this is just way too big. Even if, I mean, literally it kind of needs 4. It's literally a 4 slot. This is a 4 slot GPU. So it should, at the very least, it should have a 3rd finger here. So this is really lame. But here's one thing I just noticed about the Asus Astral. The Asus Astral has an extra HDMI, which means you can literally drive 5 monitors natively, meaning no daisy chain, no MST, none of that stuff. Like, you can literally drive 3 DisplayPort and 2 HDMI, 3 triple DisplayPort 2.1, and dual HDMI 2.1. Wow. HDMI, DisplayPort, DisplayPort. That is really good. Wow. So that is one way that they're adding. Now, the only thing is, I wonder, like, if you run both HDMI, are they going to be on a splitter for bandwidth or what? Because I don't know how they're going to get an extra connector there. 2 HDMI and triple DisplayPort. That is very good. Very nice. With the quad fan design. They have the dual pressure airflow. Or flow through. That's what everyone's calling it. You can drive 4 at once? What do you mean? Well, why do they have a 5th one then? Why do they have 2 HDMI if you can only drive 4? The thing is, so Asus is trying to justify why it's more expensive. It's more expensive because it has an extra display. It has a 5th display. It is much larger, which means it has more cooling capacity. It has more thermal mass. It's heavier. This is definitely going to be over 2 kilograms in terms of how heavy it's going to be. Looking at this is obviously over 2 kilograms. I mean, it even has a 4th fan. The fan has weight to it as well. This is like probably 2.2, 2.3 kilograms if I had to guess. Maybe even a little bit more than that, 2.5 kilograms. So this is a very, very heavy graphics card. Wait, so what's the point of having the 5th display if you can't use it? That doesn't make any sense. It's like, do they say you can do it? Oh, you're right. Maximum display support 4 monitors. Well, that's lame. I guess it's so that if you wanted 2 HDMI, then you could do that. But yeah, you're right. Okay, maximum 4. Okay, well that kind of like, okay. What's the point of having the extra display if you can't actually use the 5th one? These come in cooler packaging. This definitely outperforms NVIDIA's Founders Edition when it comes to the packaging. The box looks a lot better than the one that the NVIDIA Founders Edition comes in, I'll tell you that. You get some stickers, you get some other stuff, you get some cool stuff. So, one thing though, it does not have unless this is like a placeholder, which is probably not, you do not get the nice, longer, flexible cable that the NVIDIA Founders Edition comes with. This one comes with the regular one, like all the 4090s, which is like, oh, you're paying the Asus tax, and you're getting the old connector from 4090 days. Wow. Oh, Asus. Oh no. Oh no. They're the ones that had a lot of the melted connectors also, because they flipped it. They made it go upside down. Hold up. Let me look. What does this one come with? Oh. MSI had to color code it again. They had to color code the yellows. Oh, they're bringing out the old stock of the old connectors in these $2,300, $2,600 GPUs. Oh man. Wow. I mean, is anyone actually going to use these though? Like, let's be honest. Is anyone actually going to use this instead of a native cable that comes with a power supply? Like, it's nice that they include this. It's nice that NVIDIA has the newer one, but like, personally, I'm not going to use this. Like, if I'm getting a 5090, I'm going to use the native cable that comes with a power supply. So, yeah, no, I'm not going to use this. This thing is so messy and ugly. Like, all these random, like, it's like an octopus cable, like, dangling in front of your RGB. Nah, dude. No. So it's not a big deal. It's like, yeah, I'm like poking fun at them for including the older cables, but who cares? Like, no one's actually going to use these. Most people are going to use the native cables. I mean, I've been using the native Gen or ATX 3.0 / PCIe Gen 5 cable with the 4090 since literally I got one like back in 2022, and I've had no problems. So that's how we're going to continue that. Well, no, a lot of people, you'd be surprised. There's going to be people that buy these graphics cards and they're going to probably try to run them on like an 800, like some puny 850 watt power supply. You know what I'm saying? Like someone's going to drop $2,500 on a 5090 and they're going to try to run it on an 850 watt power supply with a 14900K, and they're going to use this adapter, and it's not going to be good. And they're probably going to shut their computer off due to OCP. But I can't wait to see those Reddit posts start cropping up on the nvidia subreddit. Like, that's going to be interesting. Yeah, no, it's good. If you have to use it, you have to use it. But realistically, like, recommended thing to do is to get a power supply that actually comes with a native cable that actually uses all 4 of the sense wires properly with the proper spec. If you're getting the 5090, you'll sell your 40. No, I won't. I already said I won't. I already said that it's going to stay in the Threadripper permanently forever. The 4090 that I have literally right here on the screen is staying with the Threadripper. It's not going anywhere. It's staying there. It's using the Corsair cable. This cable is the Corsair adapter cable it is compatible with Corsair. I think it's like Type 3 or Type 4 power supply connectors on the power supply side. So this is not the 12 volt on both ends. It's 12 volt on one end, and it's like the 2 6-pin things that go into the power supply on the other end. That is the one that I'm using with the 4090. Because the power supply for the Threadripper is the Corsair HX 1200 watt. This is powered off of a 1200 watt power supply. That is the minimum that I would go with if I was going to go with a 5090. 5090 minimum 1200 watt. Otherwise, you need to have ATX 3.1 with a native 12 volt 2x6 to prevent OCP issues from happening. Yeah, you guys are making me think I gotta do my inventory on power supplies. Am I actually prepared? Because like if I do get one of these things, what system can I actually put it in? So there's Godlike with 1300 watt Super Flower ATX 3.1 with native cable. So there's, well, let's just do this. Forget about the motherboard. So I have this ready. I have this ready to go. We also have 1300 watt MSI Meg 1300 AI or whatever, AI 1300P, whatever this thing is. This is the very first ATX 3.0 with the this is the very first native cable power supply. I purchased this one back in 2022. I was definitely an early adopter. I have a video on the channel showing this, talking about these cables. This was purchased in preparation for the 4090, so I have that one. So basically, I think... Oh, I also have a 1250 watt power spec ATX. I think this is 3.0. This is the Micro Center Special, Chinese brand. This is not Super Flower. This is not CWT, or this is a random Chinese brand. So we may go with the random Chinese brand, because I used this with my 4090 for like more than half a year, and it was totally fine. The only thing I didn't like, this had the native cable also. The only thing I didn't like about it is the cables are very stiff, and they're like, the plastic is very sharp. It's not smooth. You can tell it's like very cheap. But that one is another power supply that I have, and then the other one, then we have the 1200 watt Corsair HX 1200. This is my oldest high wattage unit. And then I have another 1200 watt Corsair HX 1200. So this one is with Threadripper. This one is with 13900K. So 13900K and Threadripper have my old trusty ATX 2.0 power supplies. These do not have native cables. These have access to the sold separately Corsair adapter that I have. I have 2 Corsair adapter cables. So these are my power supplies that are ready to go to support RTX 5090 and beyond. The newest addition is the Superflower ATX 3.1. The oldest one is these Corsair, or are these Corsair HX 1200s. So like I said, minimum for 5090 is going to be 1200 watt. So ideally you want 1200 watt or more. The absolute minimum would be 1100 watts. Anything less than that, and it's technically out of spec per the PCIe 5.0/ATX 3.1 revision for that wattage of GPU. And I'll have a video detailing why that is. So I think the only reason why NVIDIA is listing 1000 watt on their website as the minimum is because there are, to my knowledge, there are no 1100 watt power supplies. I have not ever come across an 1100 watt power supply. I see a lot of 1000 watt and a lot of 1200 watt, but I don't see 1100 watt. So we got some power supplies ready for the 5090. Seasonic historically does not handle transient loads good, but I'm pretty sure if you buy a Seasonic that is rated for ATX 3.1 or 3.0, it's fine. But the older Seasonics were not good for high wattage GPUs because they were too sensitive. They would trip OCP like way too easily. So that's why I do not recommend Seasonic. Unless you're buying like the latest generation ATX 3.1 Seasonic, I do not recommend Seasonic. If you're buying like used, or if you're buying like an ATX 2.0 Seasonic, I would avoid those like the plague. Let's put it this way. There's a reason why, if anyone watched Steve, so when Gamers Nexus had man, what's the overclockers? They had the guy, I forgot his name, but the guy who came in to do the overclocking for the, what were they overclocking? The 9800X3D? You guys remember when Gamers Nexus did the live stream with the 9800X3D, and I think they had a 4090 attached to it? They purposely did not go with the Seasonic power supply. And the reason why they didn't go with the Seasonic power supply is the exact same reason why I don't recommend them. Yeah, the guy with the beard, yes. They purposely chose, I think they went with a Superflower EVGA, or they went with some other Corsair power supply. Basically, they did not go with Seasonic on purpose. There's even a part in that live stream where they mention, or in the video where they mention, not like purposely avoiding the Seasonic, because they were like, Seasonic is not good for transient loads. No. So that's the reason why. See, those guys know. So those guys really know the truth. So, yeah. Okay. I think that pretty much covers it for this live stream. Oh, what was I gonna say about Microsoft? I think we already covered them. That was the Xbox. That was the gaming segment. We covered them already. That was the whole like, Claire Obscure, Expedition 33, and the Ninja Gaiden stuff. That was the Microsoft thing. Okay, well, I guess that's it. So we'll be back. Oh, yeah, I guess one last thing on the power supplies. So yeah, typically all my power supplies are either... This one is Super Flower, obviously. This one is CWT. This one is some Chinese brand. I don't know. This one is CWT because all the Corsair high-end ones are the CWT and CWT. So most of my power supplies, as you guys can see here, except for the one Chinese one and the one Super Flower, most of my power supplies are CWT. I trust them the most because literally the Corsair HX 1200 fixed all the issues that the Seasonic one was causing previously. So I pivoted from Seasonic to CWT and like never had any of those problems ever again. So yeah. So CWT is probably my go-to #1 choice, and then if not them, then it's probably Super Flower. Although I don't have too much experience with Super Flower, I own my newest power supply that I am using in this computer that we're streaming right now. This computer is using the Super Flower. So this one is paired up with Godlike. This MSI one is paired up with Crosshair. This Chinese one is... I don't know where this one is. I actually don't know where that is. Where is that one? I don't know where the Chinese power supply is. I just realized I have no idea where it is. This one is with Oris. This is with the Master. Oris Master. And this one is with the Threadripper. So that's it. I don't know where this one is. I forgot where the Chinese power supply is. But anyway, it's somewhere. I don't know. It's somewhere. Wait, which one? Oh, yeah. It's with the... I don't know where the Chinese power supply is. I know I have it. I just don't know where it is right now. That's weird. Okay, I forgot where it is, but I'll have to find it. Anyway. I gotta find that, actually, now that I think about it. That's one of my higher wattage units. That's not supposed to be lost, so I'm gonna have to figure out what happened to my Micro Center Special. Alright, guys, so we'll be back tomorrow, live streaming on the... Here it is, 5800, the B580. Intel Arc B580. So if you want to drop by and discuss the RTX 5090 AIB reviews and which one that I would recommend getting after the reviews go live tomorrow, swing by. Same time tomorrow evening, we will be live streaming on the Intel B580 featuring Ninja Gaiden 2 and possibly Final Fantasy VII Rebirth and the first Berserker and Dynasty Warriors Origins and maybe some other games. We'll see, depending on how sidetracked we get talking about 5090 the whole time. But that's going to be it. If you're new to the channel, do get subscribed so you can participate in these live discussions and you get notified if you hit the bell icon when I go live. Because sometimes we do multiple live streams on the weekend, and we'll be doing some interesting live streaming content in the near future, in February, definitely. So stay tuned for that. So do get notified by hitting the bell icon. Otherwise, I'll see you guys next Thursday on episode 95 of Tech Thursdays. That will be the day of the 5090 launch. So the next Tech Thursdays will be talking about the buying experience. For those of you that are going to attempt to buy the 5090, we will be discussing the experience of the launch day. So that's going to be next stream. So I'll see you guys then. Until then, take care, and I'll catch you guys next time. Thanks.